Well Network, wagertainment for every fan. Get sports betting tips from the best in the game. Available on the Odyssey app and our sister station, 650 The Bet.
Sports Radio 610 presents Seth Payne and Sean Pendergast.
We coming to H time. Let's get the work in, man. Let's go.
Great day. Great day. Oh, give me some juice, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
Woo!
Happy?
Woo!
Ben, I didn't even ask Ben. Ben did this on his own. Ben, good job. Good job, Ben Geary. It's draft day.
It's draft day, and it's Astros back to the beginning day. If you were one of those people in 2013 who knew that the Astros were just about a couple years away from turning the corner, then this is the year for you, because we've moved it back. Remember, we had been saying this is the worst record since 2014?
Right.
We're going back in time. Worst record since 2013.
2013 now, huh? Wow.
With many, many, many fewer excuses and a much larger payroll. Think about that. What was the payroll in 2013? Like $47 million?
No. In 2013, I'll tell you what it was. Welcome in, everybody, by the way. Sean Pendergast, Seth Payne with you. Draft day, and we're going to get to the draft in a second. It was $18 million.
Oh, my God.
And I'm going to give you two factoids here on this. Bud Norris was the highest paid player at $3 million a year.
Hell yeah, player rep.
That's how much they stripped it down.
Yeah.
Player rep.
Remember Bud Norris chiming in on CBA stuff? You're like, all right.
He's going to show up on Fox News at some point. I just know it. The other one was that the total payroll of the Astros was like what Alex Rodriguez made in like 2.5 months or something like that.
Oh, my God.
It was crazy. That's how you tank, man. That's how you strip down.
You had an excuse back then. I'm looking at Todd Callis and Jeff Blum with his winter hat, his winter cap on.
The replay of last night's game, the Astros lose last night to the Cubs, in case you're wondering.
That stupid stadium.
They're 7-18. I do too, and I used to have partial season tickets to it in Wrigley.
In the friendly confines, my ass.
Yeah. The replay of the Astros-Cubs game is on the TV here in studio, and it's the beginning of the game. They kick it off at 6 a.m. every morning. And Blum has on like a stocking cap and a sport coat. Callis has a sport coat. I was really cold in Chicago last night.
40 degrees.
By the end of the game, they both looked like Nanuka the North. They had vests on. Callis has a hat on too. It was funny.
Altuve looked like he was either skiing the mountains or robbing a bank or whatever.
Yep.
It was cold. It was
cold.
But as it goes this year, the cold affected both teams. The manual dexterity was not there, but it affected the Astros more than the opponent.
And it got worse as the night went on. I took the over last night in the game. It was only 7.5 runs. I'm like, Arrighetti can give up 7.5 runs himself. I'm taking the over in this game. It was 4-2 after like the second inning, and I'm like, oh, I'm set. They'll score 2 more runs.
Right.
Nope. Sean Dubin turns into the ace middle reliever. Ryan Presley, the one appearance Ryan Presley has where he looks like what they thought they were getting in Josh Hader.
It feels, honestly,
guys out.
if you erase the names and you watch this season, it feels a lot like 2013 or 2014, where you're grasping for straws in terms of, well, you know what? This Arrighetti kid, hey, sure, he got shelled in the first inning, but then, man, threw a boatload of strikeouts. Here we go.
That's the first thing I wrote down in my notes. I said, I'm watching that game, and they take Spencer Arrighetti out. He goes 3 2/3. He gives up 4 earned runs. So he has an ERA in this game of over 10. And there's not a single person on the broadcast who isn't touting the 2 or 3 little things they liked about Spencer Arrighetti. I'm like, what are we doing? You're supposed to. You guys are third on the odds for the World Series, and the first thing we're bringing up is hey, he did strike out 7 guys. He made some good pitches.
It's not as bad as you might think. Hey,
freaking kidding
here
me.
We go. Let's just reset all the expectations. I was thinking about that in terms of just the energy or lack thereof and everything else. It happens when you're losing. I mean, it always. In any sport, it always feels like, oh, these guys just aren't fiery enough. When if they were fiery as they were losing, you'd think that they weren't taking it seriously enough. Right. It's just that you're stuck in that trap of suck. But there is that element where, man, okay, back in 2014 with Club Astros and everything, at least it was a team that didn't have anything to lose and very, very low expectations. Yeah. And it had George Springer.
Yeah, they're young. The guys you liked were all like in their early 20s.
It is almost at a point, though, where you got to start really celebrating the little crap. Maybe it's the broadcast's approach might be right for it.
I'm not here.
You got to get back to square one.
I got to take up tennis or golf or something.
Third highest paid team in baseball.
Brutal.
Third highest paid. Hey, but Bregman's in the 2-hole again. So that's another thing. Well, people are giving a spot of credit for moving Bregman up to the 2-hole without mentioning the fact that he was the cleanup hitter for a large stretch of this awful season.
Rubbing two sticks together right now. Hey, Ben, cue the music up again. All right, we got.
Sorry, Sean.
No, that's okay.
Did I buzzkill you?
No.
Are you blaming me for the Astros' faults?
I'm not blaming you for anything.
Is this my childhood again? Am I being blamed for stuff my brother did?
Nope.
What the hell?
Nope. I just it's draft day, man. Let's
think about positivity.
Positivity. What is the Texans don't have a pick tonight. The coverage will begin at 6:00. Texans All Access. The coverage is all day long on the draft here, if we're being honest. But the actual draft itself, John Harris, Mark Vandermeer, Andre Ware, they're on that tonight. Even though the Texans do not have a pick in the first round, you, my friend, will be on the coverage tomorrow night live from the draft party with Mark and John. And then I'll be on with Johnny at 11 a.m. on Saturday for day 3 with Cecil Shorts. So in a draft where the Texans don't have a first-round pick, what is your excitement level for tonight's first round?
My excitement level for tonight, I'm going to do one thing before I tell you, and I'm looking at Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft.
Oh, yeah,
because remember last year, he was the one that called the Texans taking Stroud and then trading up for Will Anderson.
Oh, yeah, I sought it out last night,
so
too.
I just control F'd Texans on Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, and he does not have any mention of them at all.
Nope.
So there's no trades up into the first round according to Daniel Jeremiah.
Which, if you know, and you may have just said this, but yeah, he had the Will Anderson trade last year.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the biggest thing I would hope for, honestly, is an unexpected slide of a position group, and I guess that would mostly be defensive tackles. Or wide receivers.
Okay.
Now, wide receiver, I'm a little torn on because I don't know how to feel if it ends up being somebody that you didn't think was going to be available, like an Xavier Worthy or somebody, at the top of the second round, or that might be. I don't know if it's not something I'm going to be able to enjoy immediately. You know, it's kind of like your baseball team drafting a pitcher.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool. We'll open this up in 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So I'm hoping for a defensive tackle if all of them slide. And they get the pick, and I like a lot of these defensive tackles, but if they get the pick of whomever they want, because all these defensive tackles have slid down into the second round other than maybe Byron Murphy, I'd be really excited about that.
Byron Murphy, that dream seems to have ended. Byron Murphy, and it's all smoke right now, so who the hell knows? But of all the smoke that's out there about defensive tackles, the one big plume of smoke is that Byron Murphy might be a top 10 pick in this draft. Mm-hmm. They're talking about him maybe going to Atlanta at 8 or Chicago at 9 now is what I've seen.
Daniel Jeremiah's got him going 18th to the Bengals.
Okay.
But this is where it's tough, is there's so many really good offensive players that you just don't know, what's going to happen to all the quarterbacks if they're going to push some of the offensive players down. I'm having a really hard time thinking that the most aggressive projections about multiple quarterbacks being taken high are going to come true.
Well,
I think there's too many good wide receivers to where at some point you're like, all right, do I really feel this way about Bo Nix compared to a guy that I feel awesome about at wide receiver?
If we're using Jeremiah as sort of a barometer on this, though, I looked at his draft last night too. He's got 6 quarterbacks going in the top 22 picks.
Yeah. That's not overly aggressive. I'm thinking about some of the people that are speculating that there might be 6.
The first 4 are going to be quarterbacks. Yeah. I would say, if I were giving advice to Texan fans tonight, as far as the first round goes, my first bit of advice would be enjoy it. Enjoy that you have a team that you're not watching this going, we're desperate for this guy, we're desperate for that guy, and we can't get any of these guys because our two-headed GM traded all of our draft capital. So you can this is the last few times the Texans haven't had a first-round pick, and it's been fairly frequent, honestly, over the last 6-7 years, 2018, 2020, 2021. Particularly those 2020 and 2021 drafts, it was really hard to enjoy those because they had so few picks and they had no picks in the first. Hell, Nick Caserio's draft, they didn't pick till the 3rd round.
Yeah.
It was hard to enjoy because
and then he took Davis Mills.
And he took Davis Mills. What is up with that? So it was hard to enjoy that. This is one where I can sit back in this first round knowing full well you got 2 second-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and you got a ton of draft capital on day 3 to maneuver if you want to, or to actually select players if you want to on day 3. My advice to Texan fans would be enjoy the fact that you're not desperate as you're watching this first round. And then I would say, Seth, around pick 20 is when I would turn the Caserio alert on, I would say.
Right.
If something really tasty dropped down to about 20, I don't think he's going to be afraid to move up and go get it if he feels that can make them a better football team this year.
And depending on what's available, I don't think he's going to be able to trade back up for the same price that he traded down with, per se. Maybe he will, maybe he won't.
Maybe, but once the draft clock starts, the value chart changes.
Yeah.
Because you get multiple bidders going, and you only have 10 minutes to figure it out.
So I guess from the big picture, stand back and know that there's a million different permutations of what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you start seeing a certain positions slide down, I would say defensive tackle, cornerback. If you start hearing talk about, wow, we thought there'd be more of these guys gone by this point. It won't, tight end won't be that. I don't think Bowers is really the only guy worth getting excited about in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's a lot of the defensive stuff. The interior offensive lineman, that it doesn't really start until the second and third round anyway. So the more I think about possible scenarios, the more I realize why Nick traded back. Yeah. They really addressed a lot of the stuff that they wanted to in free agency, but then a lot of the spots where we still have question marks about, it looks like the strength of the draft is going to be the second round and later.
Yeah.
So and I think Nick probably feels better about the competition of Okudah and Henderson at cornerback right now than perhaps we do. I don't think he's got a super keen eye on them. But again, that is a position that if fewer than expected get drafted in the first round, then he might start thinking about pouncing up into the back half of the first round.
It's gonna be fun, man, and I think that's kind of that's the lens I'll be watching it through, is just hoping with each pick, it's not a guy that would be on the radar for the Texans. Yeah. And for me, that's not a bad way to watch it tonight. It's fairly stress-free. Celebrate. You got a good football team, Houston. All right, Payne and Pendergast with you. It is draft day. We're gonna be heavy on the draft today. That said, in the next segment, we will relive the first night of the draft last year, which was absolutely franchise transforming for the Houston Texans. But Mike Florio wrote about the little Titans-Texans flap that arose in this studio the other day.
Yeah.
He wrote about this yesterday. We will look at this through the lens of Florio. Did Florio go HOA Florio at all on the Titans-Texans Hannah McNair kerfuffle from a couple of days ago? We'll take a look at that coming up next. But first, Berkeley Eye Center. And if you're looking to get the LASIK procedure, Berkeley Eye Center.
You better.
Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
All right, so we're going to get to reliving Draft Day 2023 in just a little bit. That's fun to look back at now. And we're going to be wall-to-wall draft, I think, on the station all day long. Today is the first day of the NFL draft. We'll get to the biggest storylines in the draft at 7 o'clock today. So appreciate you joining us here on Payne and Pendergast, Sports Radio 610. Here was Cal McNair and Hannah McNair on the compromise that the Texans had to arrive at with the not mentioned by name here Tennessee Titans, or at least Amy Adams isn't mentioned by name. Here was Cal and Hannah on In the Loop earlier this week.
So we heard that loud and clear from our fans.
Yeah.
They wanted H-Town Blue represented. They wanted Houston represented. And so we worked with the NFL, and there was some push and shove, and we came to where we could get to with the NFL.
A compromise.
Giving us a compromise and
Definitely
a certain percentage in the uniform. And I think our fans would like more.
Yeah.
And we're probably in that same boat. But, we're working with the powers that be with the league and all that stuff to get to where we could get.
I think there was some talk. I think even publicly we discussed that we were going to be able to use a different color than Columbia blue. Mm-hmm. And so when that was released and we got approval to do that, that's when we started.
Maybe there was some, how did he put it? Give and take or something like that?
Compromise.
A lot of compromise. Hearing that.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where they just said, no, you can't. And then we compromised.
What was the reason?
What do you think?
That's one of the greatest lines of the interview. What do you think? What do you think? So Mike Florio, credit John and Landry, man. They got 2 articles on Pro Football Talk out of that interview.
Well,
yesterday.
the one, yes, and I did see that Shereen Williams, when she wrote about it on Pro Football Talk, credited Cole. She credited, who'd she credit?
Cole Thompson. I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
She did mention Sports Radio 610 towards the beginning of the article.
She did? Okay. So the blurb I saw, it was like, she said on Sports Radio per Cole Thompson.
Right, on the radio.
What the hell?
Yeah.
What are we doing here,
dude?
Shereen?
I thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, I got to go back to the beginning. She did mention the station at the beginning.
Okay.
So you're off the hook, Shereen. Good catch, Seth. So Florio picked this up yesterday. So I'm like, okay, is he going to go HOA Florio? And if so, which side is he taking in this flat?
Joey Florio, for those of you that don't know, that's Homeowners Association Florio. So Mike Florio, the former lawyer, sometimes when it starts involving anything legal, he dives in way deeper and harder than anybody wants to. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
He's an eager beaver is what he is.
He is. Okay, so whose side is HOA Florio Esquire
This one surprised
taking?
me.
A little bit too. So
Yeah.
so in his article, He lays out that the McNairs were on Sports Radio 610. He transcribes all the quotes that you just heard right there, so I won't go back through those. He says the situation traces to the fact that when the Oilers left Houston made no effort to retain the names or the logos or the colors, unlike Cleveland, Houston, the city. So the Oilers took their logos and colors and ditched them for the Titans and now use the Oilers as a throwback, even though it makes zero geographic sense to think of the Oilers as a Tennessee property. Frankly, this is Florio, Houston should own the Oilers' name and logo. It's good that a compromise was done. It would be better if the Texans had the Oilers option. I don't think the Texans want the Oilers
I don't think they want it. I mean, I guess when it comes down to whatever, I think the H-Town blue is probably, it might be a compromise that maybe it's more of a compromise than the Texans wanted, and yet, yeah, I think that you always want to maybe pay homage to the past, but you don't necessarily want to be living in it and wallowing in it. And this is probably right. You know, if there's nothing but throwback oil derricks all over town and everything, it doesn't necessarily have a forward-facing, hey, let's accomplish great things in the future. The city has yet to win a Super Bowl or an NFL championship.
Right.
You
Well,
know?
with either uniform. Yeah, it's funny. I think if they had access, like full access to that color, and they were able to do like a color rush in the H-Town blue, then that would have been, as long as we're using the word compromise, that would have been the compromise to old school Oiler fans, which is like, we're not going to do the Oiler uniforms, but here are the colors. We're kind of playing the middle here sort of thing.
For those of you that, it gets very confusing, and don't worry, we're not going to get into intellectual property law or anything, but a lot of this
not till 9 o'clock.
This is all settled. Like, nobody's taking this stuff to court. This is all settled at the NFL level because these are business partners, basically. Yes. The teams in the NFL are business partners. So I think that the biggest thing, I think the biggest thing really is that nobody likes the fact that Amy Adams Strunk has the control. Right. It's just that it's not even. I think yes, it's about the colors, obviously, but it's the fact that there's somebody in there in Tennessee who, as Hannah McNair alluded to, like, they started all this nonsense with wearing the throwback uniforms last year. Like, they felt they wanted to up it a notch. Yeah. Like, so that's what drives you insane, is that somehow they've got the right. So as far as the intellectual property part goes, the Browns negotiated it when they left that they'd be able to keep the logo, the record book, all of that stuff. So that's why when you look at Browns records, they just took the original Browns and added that to their own record books, and the Ravens became a brand new franchise.
Yeah, the Ravens basically became an expansion team.
The Titans, and this gets where it gets so weird, like the Titans chose to keep their history of the Oilers. So not just the logos, but the history, the records, all of that
and
stuff.
celebrate it as if it all happened in Nashville.
Yeah, I know. It's all really, really weird.
It's super weird.
It feels like, you know what it feels like? It feels like the NFTs from the COVID era. Where it was kind of like, okay, what are we even arguing about here? Like, what do we even own here? Like, this is all make-believe.
What is a blockchain?
Yeah. Well, that's, okay,
So Florio sides with Houston on that one. A little surprised.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Florio did surprise.
A little surprised.
You brought up something during the break.
Yeah.
Do we have time to talk about the CJ Stroud stuff?
Well, let's play CJ getting picked by the Texans, and that'll be a nice lead into it here. Let's relive Draft Day 2023. Because it was a year ago, basically a year ago today. You know, it's probably like a year ago Saturday or something on the calendar. But Draft Day, night one, the night that everything changed for the Texans. This is fun to go back and relive this. Ben, go CJ, the two CJs back-to-back here.
With the second pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
What's up, Nick?
What's happening, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling a lot better now.
Welcome to Texas, bud.
Yes, sir.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
No, I look forward to working with you. Nico's going to get on the phone here in a little bit. He'll visit with you here, and then we'll catch up with you after. But congratulations. You've earned this opportunity, and we can't wait to get started with you.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. I promise I won't let you down. I'm going to work my tail off.
You got it.
CJ, what's up, my man?
What's up, Coach?
Hey, man. Hey, we're all fired up, man. Excited, right? Can't wait to get to work with you, man. You ready to go? Ready to compete?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Just like we talked about, man. That's all I'm about. Yes, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know it, man. Let's go do work.
CJ.
How you doing?
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you for trusting in me.
Well, you worked hard to earn this, and so we look forward to getting you here and seeing your hard work all pay off here as a Texan.
Yes, sir. Yeah, most definitely. I promise to work hard.
I'm a big mark for the war room phone calls.
You like that?
I like those a lot.
I feel awkward because I think about CJ Stroud. Remember, what did he say originally that he thought he was going to go somewhere in the top 12, but he had no idea?
He told me when I did the sit down with him, he told me, I asked him, like, I had him like put me in your shoes and take us through like that night. And he said when the Texans were on the clock, he didn't think the Texans really liked him.
You're right.
He didn't think he said Nick played things real close to the vest when he was visiting and things like that. And he wasn't sure. And plus there was all the smoke. Yeah, no pun intended. There was all the smoke about where he could go because of the S2 and everything. He thought he could go anywhere. He told me he thought he could go anywhere from 1 to 10.
So 1 to 10.
Yeah.
So if you're looking 1 through 10, now obviously some of those teams didn't need a quarterback, but they might have surprised somebody. But actually a lot of them did. But 1 through 10, like that's 30 different, 30 total head coach, GM, owner combos.
Yeah.
And like I'm always amazed at some of these kids when they get interviewed and people ask like, well, have you met with this team yet? Have you met with that? Some of the kids who have met with basically all 32 teams, I'm honestly impressed by some of their recall. It's a lot of strange dudes in suits or pullovers that they've met over the course of a couple months to keep track of, and they have no idea where they're going.
Dude, I'm impressed with football players knowing all of their teammates sometimes. Yeah. I'm being serious.
It's true, yeah.
We've got about the same amount of people that work in the building here for our stations as are on an NFL roster when you add up the practice squad and everything, and I'm like, there's still people I see in the hallway sometimes.
If we showered with them every day, we'd know them better. That's a lot. Yeah.
All right.
It's hard to pick
put
up.
That in the suggestion box.
You get the whole. Think about how much more information you're getting when you take a shower with somebody versus the face. Face is only like 10%, or you get the whole full 100%. You know, really? Oh, there's Big Jim.
That would be an interesting email to come out today. Starting today.
There's Droopy Gwyneth.
Starting today. Oh, man.
We don't have a Gwyneth that works here, do we?
I don't think
call
so.
HR? Okay, thank God.
We've got a lot of questions from people about the uniform reveal this week and CJ. There were like a few people like freaking out that CJ hasn't posted anything of him in the new unit. He wasn't part of the videos and things like that. It's simple geography, people. Like he's decompressing in the offseason. He spends his offseason in California, and it's a big ask to have somebody fly cross country for a day to pose in uniform.
It's a big ask. So based on your rummagings around, it seems that the Texans didn't want to even really impose upon him because they know he's being pulled in a million different
I don't know if there were like deep conversations about it or if they I don't know if they asked or not, but I'm glad. But that's why.
I honestly was glad to see that he wasn't on there.
Yeah.
I do feel like this first year is a whole lot of like as much as the pressure was at Ohio State.
Yeah.
You know what? Simple geography is still a thing.
Yes.
Sometimes I think we forget that geography really, really still does matter.
Right.
Like being in person, face to face, all that stuff really does matter. In that, it's not as simple as, okay, you can just hop on a jet and come here, and then it ends up being 48 hours out of his life, and just after he's done all this other stuff where you're hoping for a rookie quarterback in that first offseason. He gets to rest and relax a little bit because from your senior year on through all that draft process, it's a long, long process.
Yeah.
But B, it's learning how to handle being pulled in different directions in a different way than he was at Ohio State.
After he's openly said he's looking forward to having an offseason where he doesn't have to do anything for a couple of months.
Downtime for the first time in his life.
First time ever, yeah. So that's all that is. That's all. There's no reason to freak out about it.
If I were in the Texans business office and maybe if I had called up CJ to see about whether or not he wanted to do it, as soon as he said well, I've got a vacation plan. I'd be yep, see you later.
We're good.
No, we don't need you, man.
100%.
We don't need you.
I agree with you. So there was CJ getting picked number 2, and then there was the big trade up for Will Anderson.
The Arizona Cardinals have traded the 3rd pick to the Houston Texans. With the 3rd pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson Jr., linebacker, Alabama.
What's up?
How we doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Congratulations, Nick Caserio.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it, brother. Happy to have you. We're so excited to have you here. Can't wait for you to get here.
Thank you.
D'Amico's right here. I'm going to put him on the phone, all right?
All right.
All right, thanks. Yep.
Let's go, my man. Let's go.
Peace out, bye.
For life, baby. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Hey, man, happy for you, man. Happy for you, brother. Happy for you. This is an exciting time, man. Can't wait to get to work with you.
I can't wait to work. Thank you for the opportunity, Coach.
No
Thank
doubt.
you.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it, sir.
Our guys really believe in you. Can't wait to get you here.
Thank you. I can't wait to get there.
So that was fun. You can hear Will's family screaming in the background.
That was like the CJ Stroud was a big thing at the draft party, obviously.
Yeah.
But then the Will Anderson was the one where everything went nuts. As soon as they found out that the Texans were trading up, it was just a different. It was just it was one of the best twists in movie history.
It was.
Really, if this was a movie or if this was Draft Day the movie or something,
yes,
it's that kind of a twist that nobody expected.
That's what it felt like. And honestly, the movie Draft Day, the GM in that movie, Kevin Costner, Sonny Weaver is the name of the character.
He would have loved Will Anderson.
Well, he would have loved Will Anderson. Widely panned in the real world for the trades that he made in the movie. It all worked out in the movie.
There was a lot of cocaine, basically, is what they were implying. It was like, these guys are, what the hell is this guy on?
Maybe. But the Will Anderson trade right out of the chute by experts is getting treated a lot like all those trades Kevin Costner was making in the movie. Like, there were a lot of people going, okay, this is an aggressive move here.
You know what? And it was one of those things when it goes through the news cycle. The first night, everybody covering it was super excited, thought it was an aggressive move, awesome. But then you're moving on to the other things. It wasn't until a day or two later when some of the either contrarian or just people coming out and saying like, well, listen, man, this is a lot to pay for a guy.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work out, it's Nick Casario's butt. And that's one of the biggest differences between last year and this year. I think there were a lot of people that really, like, it was an understandable objection. It was really, and like we as Texans fans tried to come up with some convoluted rationale that like, well, no, it was actually trading for the package of both C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. Really smart people were saying things that didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's still, I thought about it for a year, Sean. I did, because I sat down with a pen and paper and a computer and everything. It didn't make any sense when people were saying, like, no, it's actually a package deal.
Yep.
So there's that. But it worked out.
It worked out.
To the point where this year, when Nick Caserio traded back out of the first round, there was hardly a hint of skepticism or judgment.
Zero.
And if anything, people used it to bolster their own arguments about where the strengths of the draft were. I heard more people on podcasts saying like, well, see, even Nick Caserio decided to move out, which goes to show you the strength of the draft is in the top 15.
Noted draft tour de force, Nick Caserio.
Yes.
Yeah. And he had a hell of a draft last year, man. Hell of a draft. All right, today is draft day. We got you covered all day long here on Sports Radio 610. In fact, we'll touch on draft day and the headlines. We'll hit the Astros as well. A lot of other NFL news going on that impacts the Houston Texans that we'll get to, not only in headlines, but at the top of the hour. Stay there. But first, crash champions. If you've gotten into a recent fender bender and you crashed into another vehicle or you did like
Now one.
Payne and Pendergast with today's headlines.
All right, draft day is here. It is here. A year ago today, as we just played in the previous segment, game changer, franchise changer for the Texans. It'll be a little more laid back this time. The Texans, as of right now, do not pick until 42nd in the draft. We'll get to the big storylines in the draft at the top of the hour, but a couple things here that we'll hit. The Texans right now have 9 picks, Seth. They've got 3 tomorrow and 6 on Saturday. One of those picks, somewhere along the way, will be announced by world-famous Houston streamer, Sketch.
Sure. The guy that I pretend to I've always known about.
Right.
Long before Sketch was out running routes with CJ and Tank Dell.
He's a FOCJS.
Yeah.
Friend of CJ Stroud.
He was out there. Stephon Diggs was throwing the ball poorly to him at one point. So
I have since started watching some of his content. He's fun.
So he's a streamer. He's a gaming streamer originally, right?
Yeah.
Now he's branched out into doing a lot of
sports
different
and stuff. He's got his little catchphrases. What's up, brother? Tuesday. Yeah.
When does he say the catchphrases? While he's playing?
Yeah.
So you're getting into? Are you going to be one of these people that watches people play video games now?
Maybe. Sketch might have got me into it, man.
It's entertaining.
That's
have you sat down and watched an entire stream? Or
No,
do you just
not
watch
yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
Admittedly, most of it I'm watching now is it's draft season, so I'm making sure I'm not missing anything. That kind of thing.
This is where a lot of people our age and older probably have noticed over the last couple drafts that the people that are getting up to announce some of the picks are world famous people you've never heard of.
Right.
That are streamer, they're content creators. You know, the NFL has really reached out to content creators. I know this year. I just know this from following Brett Coleman. Brett Coleman is a guy that's had a YouTube channel forever and does in-depth film breakdowns. Real smart guy, but he was originally a Texans fan, so he's still. And he still is a Texans fan, so I hope to see Brett Coleman announce a pick. I don't know if he's edgy enough or not.
Right.
He does long-form content on YouTube that takes it's not necessarily appealing to the average 17-year-old.
Right.
It appeals to a very it's one of these things. It's a niche audience, and yet it's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
So Brett does very well with it. He needs to announce a Texans pick.
I would like that. That would be fun.
I don't know this sketch kid other than just what I've seen of a few.
He seems fun. He's a friend of CJ Stroud. He's a friend of mine. Okay. You know, so he's going to announce one of the picks. As far as storylines go, we'll get to the big ones in the draft. This one I just saw this morning. J.J. McCarthy was on the Rich Eisen show.
Yeah.
Did he spill the beans here when he was asked, okay, so what team do you think you're going to?
Where you're going? Any idea? I mean, I have somewhat of an idea. New York Giants, I've spent the most time with. They're a phenomenal staff. Love Coach Dable. Love, Mr. Shane. Love Coach Tierney, Coach Kafka, Chicago guy. Just being able to go in there, pretty much know most of the install because Coach Dable came from Alabama and Coach Gaddis came to Michigan from Alabama. So it's similar formations, motions, plays, all that stuff. So being able to get that install in has been great. I met with them twice. It's been amazing.
Okay, so that's the Giants picking sixth. They, if you're believing what you're hearing about J.J. McCarthy, they might need to move up to get him. There could be 4 quarterbacks that go in the top 5 or 6 picks. Maybe he's there at 6. We'll see. Did J.J. McCarthy accidentally spill the beans, or is he trying to speak something into existence?
Maybe he's trying to speak something into existence. I'll tell you one thing that he did. This, honestly, you talk about, as much as we criticize scouts for, using stupid things to judge people and everything, I do wonder, there's a little bit of this where, dude, read the room a little bit. If you got any kind of respect for Daniel Jones or others, or the Giants themselves,
right?
They probably don't really want Daniel Jones knowing that they flirted that hard and heavy with you in case they don't take you.
Right.
It's a little bit of a all right, dude, just have a little wherewithal here. You maybe talk about several teams that you've talked to or what have you. Yeah, I feel like you might have a little of the Harbaugh in him. You might have a little bit of the disconnect from reality and people that Jim Harbaugh, his old coach, did.
You're right. If I was with the Giants front office and he's trying to speak it into existence, that would have the opposite effect.
Maybe dude, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I don't think
maybe we haven't decided on you yet, but you're sitting here and throwing a wrench into our operation if you don't take it. If we don't take it,
I always ask, would you be a good mob soldier? He would be a terrible mob soldier.
Awful.
He would crack under questioning in 5 seconds.
Oh, he'd be out of jail so quick. He'd be did you hear they picked up JJ?
Dude.
The cops?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he comes walking in with a bunch of subs.
Yeah.
The receipt with the FBI credit card is in the bag still and everything. It's hey, guys, I got right out.
Or you never see him again because they put in the witness protection program in Scottsdale.
I like it better when they get out too fast. That's almost, why? Because then even the cops are like, this guy sucks. Get him out. Let everybody know that we talked to him. Yeah.
Right. Let's Darwinism take its hold. Draft tonight. Coverage begins 6 o'clock here on Sports Radio 610. Astros lose again to the Cubs 4-3 last night. Cubs took a 4-0 lead in the first inning, and that was enough. 4-3, the final score. It feels like every Astros loss, and there have been lots of them, Seth, have been either they give up one gargantuan inning to the other team,
right,
or the bullpen on the back end blows the save or gives up a lead.
It's on the front or in the back.
Yeah, something
it's like we got a shaggy mullet. You know, like almost a kid that's going to let everything go down in the front, but then he's got it on the back, too. And it's high and tight on the sides.
Yeah, right.
But he's just got a flowing mane of hair in the front and in the back.
Oddly, what's working is the shaving on the sides, and it's called Rafael Montero. That's working just fine right now.
Right.
The middle relief's been okay.
Sean Dubin, revelation.
Last night.
Look at this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the first inning tends to be an issue for Astros pitchers. I'll be honest with you, man. I do not like all the various excuses that I hear, like in any given, like nobody's in the mood for it. Yeah, it was freaking cold out. You know who else is cold for? The Cubs.
Yeah.
The Cubs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but they're used to. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. Like every damn team is half Latin American players. You're going to tell me that somehow, like, oh, yeah, they grew up playing in this weather or something.
Right.
Of course not. No, it's no excuse.
Yeah.
The Cubs players, everybody, nobody's been.
Yeah.
It was ugly. It was really bad. And the Astros pitchers are being the teams being outscored 30-15 in the first inning this year.
It feels
they
like
let up a run every damn first inning.
I'll be honest, it feels like way more than 30 runs they've given up.
I know,
in the
I
first
heard
inning.
that stat, and I was like,
Hunter Brown gave up 9 in one outing.
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy.
So even Spencer Arrighetti last night looks great after but there's the small issue of the 4 runs in the first inning, and then you go three and a third innings, and people are acting like he's a revelation.
And this looked like a fun day on the calendar like 3 weeks ago. Like, afternoon game in Wrigley. Man, had I known it'd be Verlander pitching also like 3 weeks ago, like, oh, wow. You get afternoon Astros and the first night of the draft starting at like 6 o'clock. So the first pick will be 7 o'clock.
Yeah, big.
It's a fun day, man.
Yeah, the city.
Except the Astros suck.
I feel bad for the city of Chicago. They thought that they were going to get like this megalopolis of awesome both draft and baseball.
Yeah,
your Cubs are actually really good this year so far, and but no, they're facing a sham Astros team.
Oh, but they're going to get a win. They're going to get a win. I think it's good to be a Chicago person.
I think for them it feels like, this is a weakened version of the Astros.
Oh, they want to beat up.
We didn't really do it.
It is Verlander though. If they win against Verlander, I'm trying to.
That's okay. Good call.
It is Verlander. So we'll see.
I was thinking about the whole weekend. Total,
yeah,
but you're right. Today especially.
Just one day.
Very big. Okay, good call.
One day. All right, those are headlines. We've got a lot to get to. Amon-Ra St. Brown got a big contract. How does that affect Nico Collins? Penei Sewell also got a big. Detroit was dishing out money yesterday. And Penei Sewell got a big contract.
How much would they trade for Verlander? Do you think?
I don't know.
The Tigers.
I don't know. The Lions. Can we get Penei Sewell? Well, I'll tell you. Notice Penei Sewell's contract.
Yeah, Laramie Tunsil.
Big time. Yeah,
he did. What did he do? The eyeballs, or what did he do?
He put 28 exclamation point because he got $28 million a year.
Yeah.
And then he retweeted the contract and did like a hand on chin thing. He tweeted multiple times.
Hand on chin.
He didn't want.
Nobody's got any.
Laramie's way more fun on a good football team than he is on a bad football team.
Yeah, he was doing that on a bad team.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God.
I'll say that. All right. A lot to get to here on the show. It's draft day. The biggest storylines for this draft. It starts with Caleb Williams, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But, man, some of the rumors floating around about some of the teams and what they're looking at, we'll get you all up to speed. Do these rumors pass the smell test? That is next. But first, Suit Mart. A couple things with Suit Mart.
contest. Sports Radio 610. The Texans play here. An Odyssey station. Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
All right, biggest storylines for the draft tonight. There will be a quarterback going first. There will likely be a quarterback going second. If you believe some of the pundits, there could be quarterbacks going first, second, third, and fourth in this draft. We'll see. We'll dig into this here in this segment. Payne and Pendergast with you on a draft day Thursday here on Sports Radio 610. All right, so let's start with the draft tonight. Biggest storylines. Caleb Williams is a huge storyline. The whole Caleb Williams off-field, reacting to losing, crying on his mom's shoulder. He's a little off-kilter, maybe a little strange, kind of a strange bird, according to some people.
Right. Just a little eccentric, which I do feel like there's a lot of healthy, I don't know if it's healthy or not. I think there's a lot of discussion amongst NFL folks where, remember, there's still a lot of crew cut in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not as free and loose as a lot of the other leagues have become. I think there are a lot of people kind of wondering, like, all right, is this just a generation gap thing? Like, Gen Z's way, as much as the millennials were different than Gen X, it seems like Gen Z is even more different from the millennials.
Yeah.
So like, are we overreading this?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably the cut that's gotten the most run the last couple days was this Dave Fleming, who's a football writer, who was on Pablo Torre's podcast and talked about a conversation he had with somebody, a former scout. I mean, this is as second and third hand as it gets, but I think it does kind of encapsulate some of the late in the process smoke that's starting to dust. Caleb Williams is going to go to the Bears. Make no mistake, he's not going to fall out at number one. But these are some of the things that we might hear the studio guys discussing tonight when it comes to Caleb Williams.
I reached out to a guy who's really well-connected, a former scout, really well-connected across the NFL with GMs and front offices, and I was blown away by his reaction.
What did the scout tell you that you can report?
I hated it. He would scare the out of me if I was working for a team. Raw emotion is great, but Caleb's thing, that was ridiculous to me. That threw up major red flags. You just lost a game in the middle of your season, and it was like your third loss in the Pac-12, and you went hugging on mommy and crying in mommy's arms, and it just seems really freaking weak and nuts. And I will tell you, he scares the out of a lot of NFL teams, too. The book on him is he's just kind of a weird kid. One GM told me it's like if Prince played quarterback. Look, I don't know him from Adam. I do not know him. But to me, that looked weak as really fragile.
Okay, so Prince posthumously trending on Twitter because of the NFL draft was not something I had on my bingo card.
I was the guy had me until he brought up Prince as a quarterback as a negative.
And now you're intrigued.
I kind of like the idea of Prince as a quarterback. Charisma,
skins or blouses.
Extremely talented.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of like that. On painkillers, like many NFL players, there you go.
Do you think tonight will be more of like a celebration of Caleb? Is it more Peyton Manning or is it more Prince, do you think, tonight? Like when Caleb Williams gets picked? What do you think the reaction is going to be?
I think the reaction is... like I would imagine most people in Chicago, once they got over the Justin Fields thing, because I know a lot of people were still very much in the Justin Fields camp, I think they're going to be gung-ho for Caleb Williams. You just turn on the highlight reel, which is all you should be doing with any player. Any player your team drafts for at least a week, only watch the highlights, and they should be really excited about it. Every time I hear something about people wondering whether he's too emotional or whatever like that, it always makes me think of Tony Soprano when he was like whatever happened to the strong silent type? There's no Gary Coopers anymore. Yeah. He was big on Gary Cooper.
He was big on Gary Cooper, and then he'd be sobbing over ducks in his therapist's office.
Right. Yeah, that's what I almost think. I feel like a lot of these scouts, I think they are compensating for something.
Yeah.
I would never cry in my my mother's arms.
Yeah.
I would never go sobbing in mommy's. I would never. Yeah.
Now, if you believe in value on the betting market, there is a prop bet. Will the number one overall pick cry?
Oh.
You can get 7-1 on yes. That he cries.
Williams is Caleb Williams determined not to cry because he knows what all of the hubbub has been about?
Maybe.
And will he actually? Because look, CJ cried last year.
He did. He cried
was
and then
CJ not mentally tough enough?
No, well, he cried and then did an interview right after that and said, I haven't cried in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, that was the first time he cried in a long time.
What level of crying is still acceptable in football for old school football guys?
I think crying when you just got made a millionaire. I think crying after you get picked is acceptable.
Joyful tears, people are cool with. You win a Super Bowl and cry, that's just fine.
Yep.
If you win a championship and cry because your dad just died the year before,
right?
A-OK, Michael Jordan,
Jordan.
or Brett Favre.
Favre is who I was thinking of. Yeah,
any crying that can be reasonably tied back to a death in the family, acceptable.
Yeah.
Crying because you've just lost your 4th Pac-12 game.
Yeah.
In your mommy's arms after. Like I can see why people ever. It does. I need to know more about okay, is this guy Dick Vermeil? Because Dick Vermeil,
big crier,
notorious crier.
Yeah, big crier. Yeah. I would say too, crying after a loss, but not on the shoulder of another human being, and not blubbering.
Yes.
Just you know what? Stiff upper lip kind of thing.
His mom covering his face actually was the worst part of it.
Bad luck.
That was it. She, if anything, we should be torching her.
Yeah.
We should rake her name over the coals this evening on draft night.
Let's do it.
Because if he had just cried a little or sobbed a little bit, maybe he was teared up or something, there would have been no big deal. The image of her shielding his face is what made it look that much worse. You're right. Crying after a loss, that's what it does annoy me about this. And I'll say this, while it doesn't bother me as much that he was crying in mommy's arms, but the people that act like that's the only way to show you care, or that that it's so people are saying, well, no, it just shows that he cares. All right, well, is everybody who doesn't cry in their mommy's bosom, do they not care enough? Is that going to become the new standard?
Crying.
Hey, mom, be sure you get your Hooters over here so I can cry in
I
them.
need your bosom.
Okay? Yeah.
Bosom me.
Where's my bosom?
Someone asked, is it against NFL rules for Caleb to put down $2 million on himself not crying at the draft? It'd be smarter to put it on crying and then just try to turn on the faucet.
He should do. It's not gambling on sports.
Can you imagine?
Is he gambling on sports if he gambles on himself not crying? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Because boxers are allowed to gamble on themselves. It's not a legal thing. It's more just the rules of your league. So does the NFL consider gambling on yourself at the draft? Is that actually gambling on sports or not?
I don't know, man. This is a glitch in the gambling matrix they didn't forecast. I don't know.
Now that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden it turns out that he was like, I'm going to get the 40 mil guaranteed. Right.
$2 million.
Sean, come on, move along.
Okay. So Caleb number 1. It looks like Jaden Daniels is a virtual lock for number 2 to the Commanders.
I just saw
1 to 5 on the odds board. 1 to 5.
I saw a mock draft at a big source that still had Drake May going second, and I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
That was at 3:30 a.m. this morning, so maybe 1 to 5 that it's Jaden Daniels. I feel look, both Drake May and Jaden Daniels have question marks and issues, et cetera, just like everybody does. But I think Drake May's issue is sometimes he throws it far, far away from the intended receiver.
Far
weird
away.
moments. Like not to jump on Ryan Mallett, obviously, who's passed away, but Ryan Mallett would have these curious throws that were like hypersonic speed into the dirt at the receiver's feet. It was one of the things that kept him from being a genuinely good quarterback in the NFL. Drake May shows all those signs of just taking divots out of the turf on easy throws.
That's the first interesting pivot point in tonight's draft. Will be after Caleb Williams goes 1 and Jaden Daniels goes 2. There'll be very little drama there. I think that's how it's going to go. Is it 3? Because there's no guarantee the Patriots take Drake May at 3. The word on the street is they're listening to offers for 3, as they should. Diana Rossini's got a bunch of rumors here, and 2 of the teams that she has it to keep an eye on to move up. One is the Denver Broncos at 12. I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to move up because they're just now getting their draft capital back. They've got way more problems to fix than quarterback. And so I think that's going to be a bad stripped down team this year, and then they're going to roll the dice next year. But she does say Sean Payton wants a quarterback, and his philosophy going back to his days in New Orleans was if you love a player, go get him. So most teams picking in the top 5 believe the Broncos could, this is Diana Rossini saying this, could make a big swing with a package that could even include star cornerback and 5th-year option pickup Patrick Surtain II, who's heading into his 4th year. So he's under contract for 2 more years.
The other chatter I've heard about Denver, too, is just going back to the Saints. They got no qualms. They had no qualms in the Saints about trading future first-round picks.
That's right.
For players. So they could get super aggressive with a player like Surtain and future first-round picks.
That's right.
I mean, I think a lot of people always just thought it was Mickey Loomis with the Saints that was into the credit card spending, but I think that very much Sean Payton is all about the credit card spending.
This will be the referendum tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, they've already done credit card spending just unloading Russell Wilson.
Right.
You know?
That's it. They took that payday loan to get rid of Russell Wilson. They were like, I don't know, it's like 29% interest, but whatever, yeah.
$85 million dead money. This is another Rossini rumor if we're looking at pivot points in the draft tonight. The Vikings, who have the 11th pick, and thanks to the Texans, the 23rd pick in the draft, appear to have their sights set on Drake May and will look to move up aggressively. They have the ammunition in this year's draft and next year's draft, but will it be enough? They're at 11 right now. They'd have to move from 11 to 3. They've got the Texans pick at 23. I'll tell you this. If Minnesota, who wants a quarterback pretty badly, it seems like, if they lose out on the top quarterbacks and don't move out of 11 and 23 and end up using those two picks just on non-quarterbacks, they're going to get killed. They're going to get killed in Minnesota. That they stockpiled a second first-round pick and they used it to draft a guard and a cornerback
all to protect
or something.
Sam Darnold and get the best out of him. That's
If they don't come away with a quarterback tonight among the top 4 quarterbacks, they're going to get killed in Minnesota.
The scariest thing about Drake May is just that, like it is with any of these guys, but especially when it comes to quarterbacks, they all say the right things in meetings. They all talk about how much they love the ball and they're committed to it and everything. But you just don't know which ones are going to really be about that life of just being obsessed with it and working on fixing your mechanics, all those little things. And like the ghost of Josh Allen can be a good thing or a bad thing. The ghost of young Josh Allen, this guy who's very physically gifted and naturally talented, but was really erratic. It took 3 years for him to figure out how to change it and how to fix his mechanics. So like it's going to take a commitment on some level for Drake May to become a more consistent quarterback. And you just got to try to be able to see through, okay, what's he been coached to say versus who is he actually as a person.
3 years, and they had to go get him Stephon Diggs, too. I mean, there's an ancillary cost that went with it. Rossini's got a bunch of rumors in here. The only one that has Texans ties to it here, it's the very last bullet point. I don't know what to make of this, but I'll read it. The Texans aren't on the clock until the second round, but I wouldn't put it past Nick Caserio to trade into the first round Thursday night. I'm expecting Houston to at least try, just based on Caserio's history. He traded 8 times last year and 7 times in 2022. We'll see if he starts calling Thursday. That's a big nothing burger right there. Someone asked me, I was on a podcast yesterday, and they said, do you expect Nick Caserio to be, do you expect the Texans to be busy on Thursday night? And I said, of course you're going to be busy. Like, we may just not see any of the fruits of the labor. Like he's going to be on the phone, especially the further the first round goes.
Yeah.
I said, so like if you're defining busy as like, hey, the Texans are on the clock at 28. Like, I don't know that that's going to happen. If I had to bet, I would bet they don't trade into the first round tonight. And I don't feel great about that bet. Just if I had to bet, I would say that they're going to hold off on the first round.
I think he moved back when he did for a reason.
Yeah.
And it was, you remember the Texans initiated it. That's a big part too. It probably shouldn't matter, but I feel like if the Vikings had initiated that talk for that trade, then it might have, then I could envision a scenario where Nick says, well, you know what, looking at my trade chart, value chart, this actually makes sense. We come out a little bit ahead. So if I'm just going to be compiling points on the draft chart, then so be it. The fact that the Texans approached the Vikings reportedly makes me feel like, this is where they felt like, as Nick said, you try to go into the draft without feeling like you need extreme needs. They go into the draft where us as casual observers probably have identified, okay, safety. Notoriously, unless you're going for an all-world safety, you're going to get him in the second round or later.
Yeah.
Off-ball linebacker for depth at the very least still. Yep. Okay, that's second round or later. Defensive tackle, this isn't a year where, even Byron Murphy is not like a slam dunk, oh yeah, that's the prototype. So there's really nobody in the first round that you feel that awesome about.
Not like a Jalen Carter last year.
And there's a boatload of these guys. There are just so many guys who are 6'2", 295 to 300-pound defensive tackles, but who are really good athletes, or maybe they're 6'3". It's the shortest group of defensive tackles I can remember. You got like 2 guys that are 6'5" or taller in this draft. But I think there's a huge stockpile of defensive tackles that can go in the second and third round that are almost all kind of carbon copies of themselves.
Do you have a favorite?
I'm having a hard time. I think that Fisk, I've got doubts and question marks about some of his, I don't know how naturally football strong he is. He's very athletic, and I like the upside there. He's got these guys all have great motors.
Yeah.
Like Chris Jenkins, I'm trying to figure out if I'm swayed by if I'm swayed too much by the family name. And he's a different type of athlete.
His dad was a good defensive tackle in the league.
And his dad was a bigger dude.
Yeah.
I'm actually veering more towards Michael Hall in the third round.
You like him?
I like him. He's not. This is the problem I have. The two big guys, Gabe Hall from Baylor and Mason Smith from LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two guys who are 6'5" or 6'6", 295 to 305 pounds.
They're the Armsteads.
Yeah, Eric Armstead,
Right.
like a poor man's DeForest Buckner. Both those guys went in the first round.
Right.
But both those guys are athletic enough. You know, they're like 5', 40 type of guys, just like Eric Armstead. But like the one with Mason Smith tore his ACL 2 years ago. And then this past year, there's times where he looks strong, and then there's other times where it looks like, okay, this guy's tall and lanky, and he's going to get murdered in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, I don't know if there's other than if Johnny Newton falls into the second round, I don't know if there's a guy that I feel slam dunk awesome about taking with that first pick in the second round.
With a 42nd
I
pick.
feel really good about all of them, like really any one of them being taken with the second pick in the second round.
59th overall right now, yeah. I'll tell you one thing the Stephon Diggs trade did, Seth, is it took the Texans out of conversations tonight surrounding veteran players who could be on the trading block. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, and if you're just tuning in, we're kind of going through the rumor mill heading into tonight's draft. We're going to get to the Detroit contracts handed out yesterday and how those might affect the Houston Texans. We'll get into that in a few minutes here as we roll on here on a Thursday, Payne and Pendergast. But 4 veteran names that Jeremy Fowler lists as guys who could be traded tonight. 4 names, and 3 of them are wide receivers. Cortland Sutton, Denver. Brandon Ayuk, of course, San Francisco, played in this system. And T. Higgins from Cincinnati, who's on a franchise tag and has reportedly requested a trade from the Bengals. The other name he puts in there is Marshawn Lattimore, which might be an interesting one, too. The Texans do need another cornerback. But as far as the receivers go, if they had not made the Stephon Diggs trade a couple weeks ago, Seth, we would be having a conversation probably right now in the 7 o'clock segment about should the Texans trade one of the, a second-round pick or next year's first for Brandon Ayuk.
If we even went back further, like going back to before, if the Minnesota trade had never happened, that's a big one, I think. The Ayuk trade where, all right, gosh, all of a sudden it seems like trading a first-rounder for an active player is like it's too much to pay all of a sudden. So many guys are getting swapped for just about nothing.
Yep.
I think the big thing is if I had to pick either Ayuk or Stephon Diggs, I think Ayuk would come with I think if you trade for Ayuk, he's a different age than Stephon Diggs, different temperament perhaps. You're giving him an extension.
It's a different commitment.
Yep. And then you fall into the old, okay, well, now you got Nico Collins coming up on his contract and everything. So maybe it ends up being a little bit more awkward, but I'd be more excited about that than I am with, like, Stephon Diggs. It's going to be, okay, cool, this is a great one-year experiment.
Yeah.
But if you'd given up a first-rounder for Ayuk and kept him around, that would have been pretty cool.
Ayuk, Tank, and Nico. Well, hell, I mean, Tank, Nico, and Stephon Diggs is incredible.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good segue into...
Well, real quick, just before, because we were talking about Caleb Williams crying.
Yep.
We got a compliment from former Houston Texan Chris Myers. Said solid cry talk this morning.
Oh, wait till I read the text, Chris.
We
got some good text, too, about the crying.
What is acceptable
for you, Chris
crying?
Myers? Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad we stumbled onto this. What is acceptable crying in sports?
9414, crying because I was dumb enough to continue to watch the Astros night after night. Crying definitely not acceptable while being cradled by one's mother in the stands in the fetal position while in uniform.
That's...
In uniform is big.
It was the whole image. Yeah, I think too many people are breaking this down into just a binary thing, like crying or no crying. Like, no, I would say if he were standing and hugging his mom and kind of crying, but especially, taller than his mom and everything, like the visual of it is a lot different than being cradled by mommy. It's the cradled by mommy part. I just feel like you got to have the wherewithal to understand, man, this is not, I got to project strength.
Right.
I got to project strength. And strong men can cry.
Yes.
I quote the Rich Lebowski.
Yep.
Strong men cry.
Yeah.
Strong men cry.
It happens.
But not like that. That was not a man.
Okay, this is a good one for Chris Myers, former Texans legend, because he lives in the Philadelphia area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni, the one-tier anthem cry.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's acceptable. I'm not gonna poop all over patriotism.
No, the one-tier anthem cry is pretty badass.
It is.
Who was the player this year at the Super Bowl?
It was Chris Jones, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Chris Jones was balling. Yeah. Tears streaming down his face.
Well, he had the look on his face, and then he did one blink, and all of a sudden the faucets came down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like somebody poked a hole in a water balloon or something like that.
Maybe he can cry on command.
That's good for an acting career. I don't know if he wants to act, but that's pretty good that's a good start right there. Chris Jones,
crying national. Okay, so national anthem crying, totally acceptable.
Totally acceptable crying,
especially given the NFL over the last 10 years and everything. I feel like if somebody cries, a lot of people are like, "Hell yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan now, baby."
All right, send them in. We need to. That's right. Oh yeah, dude. Between Chris Jones crying during the anthem and Taylor Swift being a Chiefs fan, they are pulling in the rom-com crowd, man. You know what I mean? I know she's not an actress; she's a singer, but I think there's probably a lot of overlap there. Yeah,
I think she's done a little. Her videos are actually pretty. She does a pretty good acting in her videos.
She's very good.
Yeah,
she's very good.
Chris Myers, yeah, he lives in the Philadelphia area because he runs into a buddy of mine, a guy I played college football with, Scott Carroll, my quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Like once every year or two, I'll get an image of them at a New Year's Eve party.
They get along. They're
as far as I know. I don't know. A couple alphas. You know how that goes.
I was going to ask
they might hate each other.
You know both of them. Yeah.
They're both awesome guys, but sometimes awesome guys, but both alphas.
Yes.
Sometimes they clash. Yep. So I don't know.
Appreciate you tuning in, Chris. Thank you very much. Detroit, boy, they spent some money in Detroit yesterday, and both of these deals, I think, have an impact on the Houston Texans. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets way more than was rumored for him to be getting. The rumors first started this offseason at 3 years, $75 million, and I even retweeted that at the time in like February, and I said I would give that to Nico Collins, and I got some heat for that. Like, that's too.
What was it? 3 years.
It was 3 years, $75 million. Was the rumor? Right? He gets 4 years, 120.
Yeah.
77 guaranteed. That's the key number here, but still, that 77 guaranteed was way more than the guarantee in that old rumored deal.
Yeah.
Nico Collins is going to get paid, man. This is the most money given to a wide receiver ever. On paper, as far as the total package, guaranteed and non-guaranteed. If you're Nico Collins camp, what are you doing now? You were drafted in the same draft. Hell, you were drafted like 20 or 30 picks ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not that matters at this point. St. Brown's had the better body of work as a pro. He's had 3 good seasons. Nico's had 1 great season. What are you doing if you're Nico Collins' camp? What are you asking for right now?
I think you're just look. Nico,
you let it play out.
When Nico was talking to TJ Houshmandzadeh, it's so hard not to say TJ, who's your daddy? That's one of the best promos I've ever. TJ Houshmandzadeh on his podcast. At the time, he seemed very earnest in saying that he really wasn't concerned about getting an extension early. He said if it happens, it happens, but I've got a lot to prove. He said it multiple times in that podcast, and this was around the time of the Super Bowl. So now there's time after the Super Bowl to kind of maybe let things sink in. But as of then, it felt like he very much realized he had things to prove. Amon-Ra St. Brown has just been way healthier and more productive over a longer stretch of time than Nico Collins. So I think that unless he's had a change of heart or if his agent is brainwashed him otherwise, I think he's going to play this season out and figure maybe they'll come to him in the midseason. If not, he goes to free agency.
Yeah, this looks pricey. If just coming from a Texans perspective, if I were the Texans in this case, I don't know that I'd give Nico 120 over 4 right now.
I think it as pricey as it is, though. I think I might, if Nico looks the same this year and stays healthy midway through the season, I might say, all right, well, I'd rather pay some of this money up front and just let's plan for this big chunk because if he gets we're not going to compete in free agency because right now we're looking at $120 million over 4 years, and that's right now. Next offseason, it's going to go up even more because the cap's going to expand again.
Yep. So that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract impacts the Houston Texans undoubtedly, who are looking to lock up Nico Collins. The other contract Detroit gave out yesterday, Penei Sewell, their star tackle, got 4 years, $112 million. He got $85 million guaranteed. So a little less overall money than Amon-Ra St. Brown, but a little more guaranteed money. But if you're doing the math, if you're doing the average annual value, and I think that's important because I think that's how Laramie Tunsil evaluates his contract, is by average annual value. That's $28 million. You know who noticed that? Laramie Tunsil. His push notifications hit him with that, and he was on the Twitters very, very quickly yesterday. He had a tweet where he said 28! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And then he retweeted Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network, the news, the blurb about this contract. And he tweeted, "Oh my," with the hand over chin emoji.
You know how I treat anything with Laramie tweeting about offensive line salaries or anything? It's kind of like when I see people discussing Bitcoin. I'm like, I'm out. I don't know. Like, I don't make a judgment one way or the other. Bitcoin is its own separate animal. Like, and it's unique. And there's people that are pro Bitcoin. There are people that are anti Bitcoin. But I'm not in that world. And I just choose not to even. So fine, yeah, Laramie. All I know of Laramie is that it seems like the negotiations go pretty smoothly with the Texans when it comes time to get a deal.
Yeah,
hasn't been a hiccup in actual play time or threats of holdouts or anything like that. So I just don't worry about it. It's all Bitcoin to me.
He's played it perfectly, man.
Yeah,
he's played it perfectly. I think he turns 30 this summer. He's already gotten 2 big contracts. Well, first of all, he's the 13th overall pick in the draft. The only part of his whole journey that maybe got played poorly wasn't even his fault. It was when the video leaked of him with the bong mask on, and instead of going...
Well, I mean, it's a little bit his fault, but yeah.
But I mean the actual, like that night. Yeah, you shouldn't have that video out there.
He wasn't drugged and had that forced out.
I mean the actual thing that, like the instance that affected his capital, or his negotiating, because he probably would have been the 3rd pick in that draft behind the 2 quarterbacks that got taken.
We've talked about this before. Like, if that were to happen tonight, well, obviously, it just shows you how stupid it is. Obviously, the whole view of marijuana and the repercussions and everything is way different now than it was just several years ago.
No,
but what would it if it was a bong or a joint instead of a gas mask bong?
The gas mask was a striking visual.
It was a striking, scary visual. It was kind of freaky. It still sits with. I don't like gas masks, man.
Let me put it this way. I think there would be teams that say they were picking 3rd. Again, this goes back to the Jared Goff, Carson Wentz draft, right? So they got picked 1st and 2nd. I do think there's teams that might go, yeah, I'm going to take Ronnie Stanley instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I don't think there'd be 10 teams that would say that would make him drop all the way to 13.
Well, the whole thing about the gas mask bong was it wasn't just, obviously it's not a great look regardless, et cetera, but it was the fact that he allowed the picture to be taken. I think there's something there. It's kind of like, you ever get mad at your kids for not being good at lying? Where you're like, there's sometimes where you're just like, I just don't want to have to punish you. Could you please be better? Could you not be such a horrible liar? Like, now you're lying to me, and now I have to punish you instead of just ignoring this thing. Like, I think sometimes when you're drafting somebody, you're like, do you at least have the wherewithal to understand that people can't be taking pictures when you're... It's the old Derek Jeter deal. Yeah.
Like,
hey, Jeter can go have his fun, but he knows how to take care of it to where it doesn't end up blowing up in his face.
He's very good at it, yeah.
Just, have a brain in your head about this stuff.
Okay, let me give you this hypothetical.
Yeah.
What if, right before the draft tonight, a video surfaced of Caleb Williams in a bong mask?
Oh, that's going to hurt Caleb Williams a lot more than it hurts any other
position.
Do
the Bears not draft him with the number 1 overall pick? Do they pivot and go to Jaden Daniels? I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's just it's an illustration more than anything else of like, oh, there's levels here. Like, I think the Bears would still draft Caleb Williams if he showed up with a bong mask.
What if he's dressed up like Homie the Clown? I feel like then that might boost his value. Especially for guys our age. He's got a big sock full of quarters.
Is that Living Color?
Yeah. It was one of the Wayans brothers. I can't remember.
Homie the Clown was awesome.
If he's dressed up like Homie the Clown.
Are you kidding me? I want the Texans to trade up and go get him.
Smoking a bong with a sock full of quarters or whatever. What did he hit people with? Ben, what did Homie the Clown hit people with?
I don't know.
Come on, Ben.
It's not a movie. Ben's our movie expert.
That's right, yeah.
He's our movie expert.
Somebody of the texters will tell us.
That'd be great if Caleb Williams just went in total heat check mode tonight. Homie the Clown, gas bong mask.
I never realized it's Homie D Clown.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Homie D Clown. Like D, I don't know what the initial is, but it works out Homie D Clown, yeah.
That's great. That is great. Text message. So you either have to cry or be a disruptive diva to show you're all about winning. That's
right. That is the problem. That
I don't middle ground.
It's one thing if you don't care about him crying in his mommy's bosom or not. But it's the other the other is like that people are. the other side of the coin is people are acting like that's the way you show you care.
Yeah.
Like, no, not like these other guys who don't cry in mommy's boobs.
Right.
These other guys don't care enough. He cares enough to cry like he's 7 years old.
What about, this is a text message, 0398. What about the Nancy Kerrigan getting whacked in the knee cry?
Okay, now this is a good question.
Why?
It was too much. The why part, the why. Yeah, the why.
Okay.
You know why the why? I didn't like the why because the why almost felt like that is like kind of a juvenile attitude towards like not understanding that sometimes bad things happen.
And it's
to good
entitled
people.
because
Yeah.
if she's going why, she had her gold medal dreams on her mind.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like she thought the gold medal was a fait accompli for her.
It's hard because it's an individual sport too.
Yeah.
So as far as
She's not a cute crier either, though. She had those big horse teeth, and like she like, you know what I mean? Like,
I've thought about that often. It's like, okay, how will I handle this? If I ever get assaulted with a crowbar,
and how will I
public,
look
how will
when I
look
cry?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they wear so much makeup too.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
ends up being worse because it ends up looking like a dramatic movie scene where all that makeup's
Some women
running
look
and
cute
everything.
when they cry, you know?
It's a good question though. Crying because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it's tough, and this is where you got to really test a guy while he's crying. Is he crying because of the emotional impact of the lost season, or is he crying because he can't handle physical pain?
Okay.
Crying because he can't handle physical pain, very, very bad sign. Very weak, very weak. Crying because, your season is over or what have you.
Yeah.
But doing it quietly and not in your mommy's bosom in the fetal position,
Right.
That's acceptable.
Okay, so the times where you got injured.
Yes.
And you were in that situation.
Yes.
How did you handle it?
The only time I ever cried was after I tore my ACL in 2003 in the second game of the season.
Right.
And I was alone in the locker room, kind of just like in the training room, like at halftime after everybody had gone back out because they were giving me the stuff and everything. And I don't even know. I was kind of just like sitting, facing. To this day, I still don't know who did this. I was sitting facing like the corner in this dark room, like in the training
trainer's room.
Yeah. Because like they knew that my ACL was torn at that point. Somebody came up behind me and just kind of like patted me on the back, kind of like a reassuring. And that one got me starting to blubber. I was kind of like, yeah.
That's when you knew, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
well, no, I just it's like a show of compassion or something. Just kind of is almost like it releases it. That's why I blame Caleb Williams' mom to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
She shouldn't have been there inviting what happens when sometimes when your mom
twisting the faucet like
well,
this.
yeah, your mom kind of, because I'm a sucker for that. I shouldn't say a sucker. Like when there's times where I'll be really stoic, but then if my mom or my wife like expresses sympathy, then all of a sudden it kind of like releases you to be emotional in that moment.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Victory crying. I let out a few tears after the Astros won the World Series.
Yeah, that's fine. Any kind
Definitely
of
allowed.
Crying for joy, largely accepted.
Yes. Especially for championships.
Yeah.
That have never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So I say yes on that one. Caleb is so cringe. Somebody texted that in. I don't know if he's cringe. We'll see tonight.
What's up with the painted fingernails? Is that does he do it a lot, or is it just that he's had moments where he's had painted fingernails?
I don't know, but I heard on one of the national shows driving in today that the rumor is he's painting his fingernail. He and his girlfriend are painting fingernails silver to match outfits or something.
Oh, for tonight.
That's what I heard. It's a rumor.
I like this kid. Hey, Chuck Liddell painted his fingernails, you know? It's one of those things where you got to, like, okay, but now his kids would paint his toenails. That's right. He had his toenails painted.
Of the three off-field things that hit my radar with Caleb Williams, the painted fingernails hit my radar, but I don't really care. It's just it hits my radar because it's such a big topic with everybody, but I don't really care about it. I honestly, the crying in the mother's bosom thing is more fun it's more poking fun at. It's a little concerning to me. The biggest one to me is he didn't go to a press conference after a loss. Like, man up.
That it was a
Sack up.
Right,
it's
and you might
the USC media. What are you doing?
And if you're hearing that, Sean say that, and you're like, well, screw the media or whatever. I get that. I understand that.
A quarterback.
But it's one of those things that is a talent evaluator. You're looking at, okay, what are the duties of an NFL quarterback?
Yes.
It's to, like, honestly, Deshaun Watson did a really good job of it that COVID season of having to show up twice a week in the press conference. And like that's just one of the duties that you have to do, and you got to try to be a show of strength when everything else is falling around you sometimes, or after really tough losses. Yeah, I think it certainly didn't help him. If it was more of a tight race, if a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud were in this class, also, I think people would look at C.J. Stroud and the way he handled the media and stuff versus Caleb Williams, and they might be giving C.J. Stroud the edge.
I agree with you. Okay, now we have a texter guessing who patted you on the back that made you cry. I bet it was Kylie Wong, Seth.
I think it was Charlie Casserly.
Really?
I think it was,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
He made me cry. So then I could tell because I turned around and I could tell by the bosom that it was, I didn't want to look him in the eye.
This is definitely Charlie's bosom.
Cry. I got in the fetal position.
And then you
I was
heard,
like, is this Kylie Wong wearing a suit on game in the third quarter of this Saints game? No, I think it's Charlie Casserly.
And then there was a soft whisper in my ear, and that's when I knew. He said, it's going to be okay, see? It'll be fine,
Everything's going to be all right.
See?
You're a sweet kid.
See?
That's when he knew. And that's when Charlie Casserly knew that I wasn't cut out to be his quarterback. This guy's blubbering like a clown. He's like a bomb-smoking clown.
Dumb. Cross out that position change we were going to do with Seth. It's crying in my bosom.
I was grasping for straws. So anybody but David Carr. but not this blubbering fatty.
No. All right. Daniel Jeremiah.
Fat crying with one ACL is no way to go through life, Seth.
No, it's not. No, it's not. All right, Daniel Jeremiah. Honestly, if we think back to last season, the only mock draft that matters today is Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. He's the one that called the Will Anderson trade last year. What trades are coming this year, according to Daniel Jeremiah and the old Mockaroo? We will get to that coming up next. But let's talk about the Men's T Clinic right now. Testosterone.
Live from the Twin Peaks studios, Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
There's the whole thing about spoiler alerts these days, Sean.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have their own set of rules, kind of like the rules of flying. Everybody feels like their rule about when you can stand up, when you can recline your seat and everything. They all feel like, no, this is the rule because this is the way I like it. Spoiler alerts in the age of streaming. These are my rules.
Okay.
If it's a show that occurs that people look at as appointment viewing,
yes,
and they want to see it like in that moment,
yep,
like including like a sports game,
yep,
or event, then you can start talking about it online immediately afterwards.
Okay,
on everything. Now, if it's something that gets dropped all at once, like a Netflix series, I think that's when you got to exercise some restraint. Like if 12 episodes get dropped on day one, you can't be out there day two talking about the finale of that season.
Yeah, just because you have nothing to do all day and can binge the whole series, don't drag everybody else down.
But when it comes to like Survivor, so Survivor is something that people get excited for. They watch it on Wednesday night. I look at that like a sporting event.
Okay.
They're like, okay, it happened last night, so I didn't get to watch Survivor last night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, same as if there was like the Astros. I'm not going to come in here, obviously, if it's not a sports radio show. But like anybody's not going to walk into the office.
Don't tell me what happened.
Oh, I can't believe you talked about the outcome of the Astros. I mean, I assume they lost, but still. Yeah.
And the reason we bring this up is because my daughter's boyfriend is one of the contestants on Survivor.
Yeah.
He's made it to the final 9 going into last night.
Okay. And going into last night, it looked like he might be aligning himself dead set against one of the strongest players in the game.
Yeah.
Q. Am I pronouncing that right?
Q. Yep. Okay. Yeah, just the letter Q. You are pronouncing that letter right.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Sean.
I didn't know if the people knew that it's an initial. Happy to say.
It could have been like Q, like spelled
C-U-E,
like the English Q up.
Yeah, wise guy. I'm happy to say Charlie is among the 8.
Oh, nice. Don't tell me who got eliminated.
I won't tell you who got eliminated. I will tell you Charlie won the immunity challenge.
Oh, he did?
It was an individual immunity challenge.
He's not one of the stronger, like, individual challenge guys, so that's awesome that he was able to win that.
He won the individual. It was on an individual. It was three teams of 3.
Yeah.
They did a challenge to eliminate the first team. They did a challenge to eliminate a second team, and then those 3 remaining competed against each other for one immunity spot.
That's one thing I've noticed in Physical 100, the hit Korean reality show that I've been watching.
You love, yeah.
The teams are a huge wild card.
Yeah.
You end up some weaker players, and Charlie's not a weak player.
No.
Charlie is a player who very much, like, people have mistaken his kindness for weakness. And even amongst viewers, I could tell. Like, a lot of people thought, like, oh, Charlie's so nice, he's going to get eaten alive. And I'm like, no, this kid's savvy.
He ratted out Q to Tiff.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
Q deserved. Q's getting too crazy.
I'm not gonna,
Q's getting out there on a limb.
I won't tell you who got eliminated, but just know, Charlie, I'm in a good mood today because Charlie has survived another round.
Your daughter's not going out with a loser.
Well, not yet, at least. We'll see. Got to 8, big deal. Get to 5, all right, and then wake me up.
Don't embarrass the family.
That's right. Daniel Jeremiah last year in his mock draft, the day of the draft or the day before the draft, within 24 hours of the draft, conspicuously had the Texans moving up from 12 to 3, just after taking C.J. Stroud with the second pick. Ben, give me the sounder here. With the second pick, the Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud in this mock draft. Turns out he was right. Had Bryce going 1, C.J. going 2. Daniel Jeremiah, the only mock drafter this time last year, a year ago today, that had the Texans trading up to 3 and selecting Will Anderson Jr., and he said this: "It's no secret that Arizona wants to trade out of number 3, and it's no secret that Houston is seriously considering an edge rusher with its second pick. Both teams get what they want in this scenario. Houston now has a pillar on each side of the ball. That's accurate.
What are the odds that Daniel Jeremiah just guessed that versus what are the odds that, as you know, Bill Belichick the other day when he was on ESPN said that those last 12, he said 12 hours. I'm guessing it's maybe 24 hours is when the real info starts leaking.
Yep.
Because people kind of, and they probably are pretty selective in who they leak things to.
Sure.
Because they either want something to happen or maybe they just want to curry favor with a Daniel Jeremiah. Yeah. I think the Texans chose right. If they're going to leak information, I would much rather have them leak it to Daniel Jeremiah than like a Mel Kiper or something.
Yes.
Mel Kiper, by the way, his final mock draft last year had Bryce Young going to the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
Had the Texans taking Will Anderson number 2
So
overall.
he was buying into all that silly smoke.
Think about the weirdness that this would have been, though. Number 3, Titans trade up for C.J. Stroud.
I remember that now. Yeah. That would have been. That would have
sucked so bad.
Would have sucked really bad.
He also had Will Levis going number 4 overall to the Colts. Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, boy.
He barely went 4th overall in the second round of the draft. he went 33. He was 2nd overall. He was in the second quartile of the round 2 quartile.
Winners were in the top quartile of that upper quartile.
Real quick, speaking of 5 months after the fact, Jim Irsay wants everybody to know it wasn't a drug overdose.
Oh, yeah.
Why did it take 5 months for this
so
to come out?
is he? Can I make fun of him again?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because 5 months after the fact, where everybody was assuming that he had OD'd on drugs, or it was reported.
Okay.
He's clarifying, no, it wasn't.
God, I hope they do something stupid in the draft tonight so I can repurpose that voice.
Yeah.
So this year, in Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft, he doesn't have anything in here, Seth, nearly as sizzly as a trade up to 3 to get Will Anderson. In fact, he's only got, by my count, 2 trades in this draft. He's got Philly moving up from 22 to 12 with Denver to draft a tackle. Now, Denver does move back and take Bo Nix with the 22nd pick. So there is a sizzly thing happening in the chain of events, but it's not the move up. The move up is a move up to go get an offensive lineman. And then they have Washington, or Daniel Jeremiah has Washington trading from 36 up into the first round to draft a tackle. So I guess if you're looking to keep an eye on certain things tonight with the draft, Philly and Washington moving up in the first round to go get one of these tackles. It's a very tackle-heavy first round, it sounds like. That's a position that's a very, maybe, other than wide receiver, maybe the strongest position in the upper portion of this draft.
Yeah, the tackles are the ones that, and it is, look, as we talked about yesterday, it's one of the safest marquee positions you can take in the draft.
That's right.
And I think part of that is it's a technique-heavy position, and usually you can tell a lot more about maybe by a guy's junior or senior year in college whether they've got the ability to tie it all together. And then part of it, I mean, just the physical measurables matter. For whatever reason, it's a safer pick to take an offensive tackle. More of those guys end up being mainstays on their team forever. The Daniel Jeremiah mock draft from last year he also had the Colts taking Will Levis at number 4 overall.
Okay.
It just goes to show you how much these guys are kind of, I think, victim to the groupthink sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was, and you can kind of tell maybe who they get their information from. I mean, like Daniel Jeremiah was spot on a trade where you almost have to have information.
Right.
And then the very next pick, he's got Will Levis. Not only did they not take Will Levis, they took another quarterback altogether.
Right, yeah. Anthony Richardson in this draft, in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, the Colts still had the choice at Will Levis. I don't even know where Anthony Richardson went in this draft.
Yeah.
I mean, in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft.
Right. So that's the old that was the mock that nailed the Texans draft last year. So
the second round, the problem with the second round stuff is that it's impossible at that point. It's like your brackets in the NCAA tournament. There's just too many different things that can happen in the first round that, like, to nail a pick in the second round is nothing but it's not pure and total luck.
No,
but it's there's a lot left to chance.
I think if you guess the right position in the second round, then you should get credit for it. You know what I mean? Like in the second round, if somebody guesses Johnny Newton for the Texans and it winds up being Chris Jenkins, and they drafted a defensive tackle, you're 42 picks in or whatever, I'll give you half credit for that,
Daniel Jeremiah had Anthony Richardson going number 20 overall to the Seahawks
The Seahawks, okay. I remember him falling quite a bit in Jeremiah's draft. Okay, so there you go. Man, we got you covered wall to wall on the draft today. Not only on our show, but obviously in the loop. The drive with Clint and Ron, they're going to have you covered on the draft. And then, of course, actual draft coverage tonight starting at 6 with Texans All Access. And then the first pick of the draft coming shortly after 7 o'clock. John Harris, Andre Ware, Mark Vandermeer have you covered. Seth will be on with the fellas tomorrow out at the draft party with Mark and John. And then I'll be with John Harris and Cecil Shorts on Saturday morning for day 3 of the draft. Up next, the 8 at 8. We call it the Ocho, 8 stories. A lot of NFL stuff we got to get to in the 8 at 8. We will rapid fire that for you coming up next. But Prize Picks, man, Prize Picks is great this time. right here on Sports Radio 610. 6 a.m. Texans All Access, and then 7 o'clock the draft begins.
6 p.m.
Did I say 6 a.m.?
Yeah, that's all right.
I've got 6 a.m. in my head. 6 p.m.
You did that yesterday, too, at 6 a.m. You said 24 hours from today, now, the draft begins.
That I knew.
I wouldn't have corrected you, except now I'm starting to worry that you might,
Dude,
you might have a little disconnect.
At least I'm getting the days right.
Yeah.
That's progress for me. But the draft starts tonight. The Texans, I would say, Seth, the Texans are about as much in the background on this draft as far as like storylines and smoke and conjecture. And I'm totally cool with just sitting back and watching tonight.
Yeah, there's no FOMO right now just because I feel like we've been blessed with a lot more interesting Texans content in the year 2024 already than maybe we had for the entirety of
since the season ended.
Or so. Yeah. Like actual exciting stuff. Well, yeah, just even Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud winning Rookie of the Year, and then all of the different interviews and everything that came out of that. Not to mention kind of getting the good news about Tank Dell being back and fine, all of that.
Yeah, man.
Stephon Diggs trade. There's been a lot of activity, like a lot of positive activity.
Oh, even like Andre Johnson going to the Hall of Fame. Like the Texans are that blackjack player sitting at the table right now, and it's all like face cards and aces coming out. Like, it's been a great offseason.
There is a little bit, though, of like I'm a little bit jealous of the people that get to sit around and get a brand new shiny acquisition tonight.
A little bit, a little bit. I
don't need it to be number one overall.
No,
I'm not that jealous.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so odds Nick Caserio trades into the first round.
I think because Caserio himself initiated the trade out of the first round. And because, we've heard so many times from him about how they feel about trading into bands of players and everything like that, I think that they might, maybe he really would prefer to be a little higher in the second round, or maybe he'd prefer to trade back. But I think that's something that starts to happen right now. I think that, he's happier being where he is right now than he would be at number 23 overall.
Yeah, I'll put the over-under at where the Texans make their first pick tonight at 37.5.
So he's going to move up a little bit.
I think he's going to move up a little bit.
Does he have to? So for that, he wouldn't have to use the other second-round pick.
No, not at all. Right? In fact, I did a post on the Houston Press that listed all the day two trades he made through these first 3 years. And typically, like the most expensive one was, I think, the one to move up to get Nico. He went from, it might have been Metchie. He moved up from 68 to 44 to get Metchie. Cost like a fourth and a fifth or something like that. So, if you're moving up just 3 or 4 spots in the high part of the second round, I'd guess maybe it would cost him like a fourth and a sixth or something. So nothing too pricey.
That'd be fun because I'm married to two second round picks now. I really do want to.
too.
I'll only be disappointed if they don't have 2 second round picks.
I am too. So everything gets going tonight for the NFL draft. You can hear it all weekend long right here on Sports Radio 610. Speaking of the draft, did J.J. McCarthy spill the beans with Rich Eisen, or did he damage the possibility of him landing in a spot that he seems really excited about? J.J. McCarthy, he's one of the real wild cards in this draft, Seth, the quarterback out of Michigan, because it's felt like all along Caleb Williams is number 1. Jaden Daniels has really worked his way into being number 2. I think he's going to go to the Commanders at 2. Drake May has largely been thought to be the third best quarterback in this draft. I think just how close he is to Daniels and Williams has come up for a lot of debate over the last couple of weeks. And then there's J.J. McCarthy, who, went from, hey, maybe a second-round pick to, hey, maybe a first-round pick later in the first round, to where all of a sudden there's all this smoke about J.J. McCarthy might get picked ahead of Drake May. Who the hell knows? J.J. McCarthy was on the Rich Eisen show, and Rich Eisen asked him, where do you think you're going?
Where you're going? Any idea? I mean, I have somewhat of an idea. New York Giants, I've spent the most time with. They're a phenomenal staff. Love Coach Dable. Love, Mr. Shane. Love Coach Tierney, Coach Kafka, Chicago guy. Just being able to go in there, pretty much know like most of the install, because Coach Dable came from Alabama and Coach Gaddis came to Michigan from Alabama, so it's similar formations, motions, plays, all that stuff. So being able to get that install in has been great. I met with them twice. It's been amazing.
Did you happen to listen to the whole interview?
No, I just that clip wound up on my Twitter timeline this morning.
Yeah, the only thing I would wonder about is whether he was just kind of throwing it out there as one of the teams that he felt like maybe in his mind there were 3 teams he was going to talk about, and that was just the one that he landed on. I do feel like I almost feel like if I were the Giants and I'm trying to figure out, with quarterbacks, you really try to figure out what kind of a dude is this guy. like what kind of a personality, all of those other things. The fact that I might be considering this guy to replace Daniel Jones because I really don't like Daniel Jones, and yet this guy is saying a lot of stuff that's going to affect how Daniel Jones feels about us if we don't end up drafting J.J. McCarthy. It annoys me a little bit. It would annoy me a little bit. Like, dude, read the room and understand like what you're talking about here. There's another human being with a job right now who's way overpaid, but still. And I also then I wonder if anybody else is mocking him to the Giants. All right, are the Giants paying for the sin of a previous GM? Where sometimes you think, oh yeah, the Giants, they'll take the boring white guy. That's what they do. Like, well, no, that was a different GM. You know, that's not necessarily. This is not the same GM that drafted Daniel Jones.
That clip,
and overdrafted Daniel Jones.
Yeah, ironically, in the same draft slot they're in this draft, which is 6th overall.
Drafted him way ahead of where most people thought that he was going to fall.
Yeah. That clip in a vacuum gets dumber each time I hear it. Like, what are you doing, J.J. McCarthy? Like, just if I were a Giants front office guy, I'd be like, what the hell?
3.
The Cubs beat the Astros last night, 4-3. The final score. The Cubs score 4 in the first inning off Spencer Arrighetti. And then Spencer Arrighetti did what he did in his last outing, which is, he had one really bad inning, and then the other 3 innings were pretty good. He struck out 7 guys, didn't allow any more runs. Problem is you give up 4, and you play for a team that can't hit with men on base right now.
Yeah.
So they built a 4-0 lead, and they were able to kind of ride that ship into the shore yesterday.
The best thing the Astros have done with runners in scoring position in the year 2024 was when Yainer Diaz, of all people, he who is worst at hitting with runners in scoring position, he had an RBI double 2 nights ago that ended up breaking Cody Bellinger's ribs.
Well, good job, Yainer.
That was pretty nice. That was pretty nice. You were at the uniform unveiling.
I was, yeah.
So you didn't get to see Cody Bellinger and the issues he was having with the wall 2 nights ago?
Yeah.
It was bad. I mean, it was between the wind and the lights and everything else like that.
And the brick.
Yeah. The brick was the big thing. Yeah, the brick was the most critical factor.
Right. The blunt force trauma.
I wonder if Cody, who kind of perpetually walks through life seeming like he's, maybe affected. Like he's just, I don't know, like he's not quite sober. I don't know. Maybe he just felt like, oh, look at those big billowy bushes of ivy. That's gonna feel like
that'll cushion me.
It'll cushion me.
That'll cushion me. Yeah.
So his ribs are broken, but that's about the only good thing that's come out of the last 2 nights.
Yes.
And Sean Dubin, I'd say Sean Dubin.
There you go. Awesome.
Which feels so much. This is where so everybody.
Yeah.
We've gone from it hasn't been this bad since 2014. We're officially back into we haven't had a record this bad since 2013.
Right.
The absolute nadir of everything.
Right.
But also an era in which you might see some guy named Sean Dubin pitch 2 1/3 good innings and be like, hey, maybe we got something
That's
here.
my thing. It's the worst record since 2013. We can't start acting like it's 2013, though.
Maybe this guy's got it.
I'm not here for the little victories. I'm here for actual victories. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little win. Ryan Presley went 1-2-3 in the 9th inning or the 8th inning last night.
Hey, look at that. Yeah, Ryan Presley had a good game. That was an attaboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, Spencer Arrighetti, hey, don't ignore the 4 runs he let up.
Right.
Let's just talk about the strikeouts.
The post-game show, they're talking about, on TV, they're talking about, and I don't, like, you do what you do. These post-game shows for the Astros on TV are long, especially after a loss like that last night. And I don't feel like Brian Bogasevich is, like, pointing out the good things Spencer Arrighetti did.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming him. I'm just not here for it. That's all. You know?
Yeah, I'm not here for the 2014 feel-good, like, hey, this guy's got the tools type of thing.
Right.
4.
Guess who Ezekiel Elliott is talking to once again? Guess who might be back on good terms?
The Dallas Cowboys?
The Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott. This according to Ian Rappaport. Tweeted it yesterday. Reunion? ? The Cowboys met with old friend and former Pro Bowl running back Zeke Elliott and agent Rocky Arsenault. What a badass agent name that is. About a potential return to Dallas, according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. The former NFL rushing champ and his old team don't have a deal just yet, but they are in talks. If I were a Cowboy fan, and the Cowboys who've done nothing this year in the offseason, like they've done nothing to secure their own house with extensions for guys. They've done nothing to make their roster better.
Yeah.
And you have an owner who's saying he's all in. The first move is to bring back the running back you let go because he's washed up.
Who hasn't averaged 4 yards a carry since 2021.
Yeah, I wonder how they're talking about this in Dallas today.
You know what's funny is Ezekiel Elliott, like the few times that I checked in on the Patriots last year, or just even read or heard things talk about, people were pleasantly surprised with Ezekiel Elliott. Like, he's doing all the right things, this, whatever. Sure, he's not going to make a Pro Bowl. So I didn't really think too hard about it. And then you look down and you realize, oh yeah, he ran for 642 yards at 3.5 yards per carry. Oh, okay.
Wasn't that great?
That's a classic. Is this the 2013 Astros now, too?
Yes.
Right? That's a bit. Yeah.
It's a
the
classic.
Patriots last year.
Were the 2013.
That's what the damn 2024 Astros are doing. They're turning into the Patriots of the last couple years.
This segment's getting worse and worse for the Astros, ironically, talking about Ezekiel Elliott. It's happening right now.
Who's the equivalent on the current Astros of if Ezekiel Elliott goes back to the Cowboys? Verlander better get his ass in gear. Like, he had a good first showing, but I don't need
an Astro
5.6 ERA Justin Verlander.
Up next is Verlander, Ezekiel Elliott. Wow.
5.
A couple contracts handed out in Detroit that I think have a ripple effect on the Houston Texans. Amon-Ra St. Brown, their number one wide receiver, got 4 years, $120 million, $77 million guaranteed. Worth mentioning, he was drafted in the same draft as Nico Collins. Nico was a third-round pick. St. Brown was a fourth-round pick. And this is a whole lot more money than I think people thought he was going to get. If we're just doing average annual value, Amon-Ra St. Brown is in Tyreek Hill country now.
Yeah.
He's in Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams territory now.
Does he have 10 kids?
30 million. Amon-Ra St. I don't know if he's old enough to have 10 kids yet. Like Tyreek's had a few more years to get the work in.
So Tyreek has 10 kids?
According to, he may have revealed that in a podcast interview he did, kind of alluded to it, I guess.
Oh, really?
I don't think he announced to the world. Like, I'd like to announce something. I have 10 kids.
Gives me such a stomach ache, man.
Just thinking about it, yeah.
And it's with a few different women, so it's just I get such a stomach ache thinking about that.
Yeah, well, let's think about
Kids, practice safe sex.
Yeah,
please.
No kidding.
And the safest is abstinence. Okay,
yes,
go play your video games.
That's it.
Don't knock up women 10 times.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, ripple effect on Nico Collins. Penei Sewell, Lions tackle, signs 4 years, $112 million yesterday. Laramie Tunsil's already tweeted twice about it since the contract got signed. $28 million a year.
He just got a new deal. When was his new deal? Was it less than a year ago?
It was no, because Titus was a year ago.
Oh, okay.
I think, but Laramie, it was last offseason.
Yeah, this is the second deal he's done with Nick.
You may be right. This may be under a year ago. Yeah. Well, the good news is, okay.
Don't test me on my pocketbook watching, wallet watching. It was March 19th, 2023.
Okay.
So it was a little over a year ago. 3 years, $75 million extension that includes $50 million in fully guaranteed money.
Yeah. Maybe you jumped the gun. Maybe you should have been doing 1 year prove-it deals, Laramie Tunsil. You'd have $28 million now instead of $25 million.
I would. If I'm Nick Caserio, I'm not reading into this. It's not even a cryptic tweet. It's just Laramie Tunsil just saying, like, oh, wow, good for him. But, this is what you want. Actually, if you're Nick, like Nick treats his football players like strippers. He wants to pay them in cash so that they're eager to go get more. So
I hope he's listening right now.
He's sticking $1 million checks in their jock straps. Go make daddy some money. And but he wants these short-term contracts because he understands human psychology.
Yeah.
That carrot, the closer that carrot is to your face, the harder you're going to work for it.
Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of NFL teams are coming around to. They're like, sure, we'll give you a bunch of guaranteed money because we know that that the cap is going up. We know the cap's going up, and if you produce like hell for the next 2 years, we'll gladly give you another 2 or 3 year deal.
Laramie, if I had to predict, Laramie is going to get at least one more contract from the Texans.
Yeah,
he'll be what, 31, something like that, 32 when this one's up, or 31 or so when this one is now up for okay, you got a year left, let's get you locked in, and do an extension. He's going to make $30 million a year someday. Laramie will for sure.
6.
6. Okay, let's hit these quick. Trey Hendrickson wants out of Cincinnati.
What?
Yeah.
No way. Why?
He's got $15 million coming to him this year, but he wants more long-term security. Got 1 year left on his deal that he signed back when he was a free agent.
Does he want out of Cincinnati, or he wants a new contract?
Well, I think he wants a new contract, and they're not willing to give it to him.
Right.
So he said, "Well, I want up and out of here."
They paid Joe Burrow that money.
They did.
And they got a T. Higgins situation.
Who also wants a trade.
Yeah.
And they've got Jamar Chase they've got to take care of now too.
They got a lot of you got to that Super Bowl window clamps up real quick if you don't take care of this stuff.
And again, the team that the Texans most often get compared to this year are the 2021 Bengals.
Yeah.
And I think this is an indicator, if you're a Texan fan, this is an indicator, you know what, enjoy the now. Because 2 or 3 years from now, the Texans will be dealing with similar issues.
Look at what happened right now with the Texans. It's almost perfect symmetry, is that the Texans have this rookie QB window, and what are they doing? They got Joe Mixon from a team that's no longer in its rookie contract QB window.
Keep going.
They got Stephon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Bills are no longer in their rookie quarterback contract window. The Vikings are a whole different scenario, and that wasn't a trade anyway. But still,
they've had cap issues too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Like it's like
they splurged on Grenard and Blake Cashman, and that kind of clogged things up for bringing Danielle Hunter back.
That's how you appreciate the fact that the Chiefs have been able to do what you hope, which is that your young quarterback, yes, when he's young and he's got a Travis Kelce and a Tyreek Hill, not to mention some of those other receivers, that looked even better with Tyreek Hill, but still, that sometime in those first 3 years, he's got to turn into a guy that can make everybody else around him. 'Cause you're not going to have a Tyreek Hill. You're going to have an aging Travis Kelce. So like that's what the Texans are banking on. Like we've got this 3-year window where sure you can call it that Super Bowl window or whatever. It's like, but CJ's got to get so good by the end of 3 years that you can do more with less.
Yep. All right.
7.
Some fifth-year options yesterday announced. Jamar Chase, speaking of, the Bengals exercised his fifth-year option. Micah Parsons, his fifth-year option exercised by the Cowboys. Give me a number 8 here, Ben.
8.
The interesting one was Justin Fields. No fifth-year option from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. I was told that was the biggest steal of the century that the Steelers made.
Yeah, they were the smartest people on earth.
They were playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. But I guess this guy they traded for not good enough to exercise a fifth-year option on, I guess.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or is that hardcore negotiating by Fields and they're like, I'm going to be, I don't know.
It's the Steelers' choice. They said, we're not giving you the fifth-year option. They said no.
Right. Well, okay, technically it's his choice, but what have we learned in the last few years? Players have a lot more leverage than just they can threaten to raise a stink about stuff. Like he might not have wanted
he
to
didn't
have
want
that
the fifth-year option. I see
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah.
I got you. Kind
of like Stephon Diggs,
Mulligan is his agent, Justin Fields, I believe. Yeah, maybe so. All right, Payne and Pendergast with you on a draft day Thursday. All right, speaking of the draft, as we're watching it tonight here in Houston, I think there are things to root for here. Like guys sliding down the board. Who's our list? What is our power ranking here of guys that we are hoping kind of start to slide into range for Nick Caserio? We'll give you some names to watch tonight coming up next.
Bayway Ram on 225 in Pasadena. I'm actually headed.
580.
Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
All right, so if we're watching tonight's draft through a Texans fan lens, there's no pick that the Texans have tonight yet. If you're rooting for the Texans to pick tonight for Nick Caserio to trade up into the first round, or maybe you're rooting for certain players to fall to the Texans at 42 tomorrow or in that range, I set the over-under at where I think the Texans will eventually pick at pick 37.5. You know, so right around, if you were betting on this and you think, I don't think they'll pick before 37.5, 37 or before, you take the under. So as you're watching this tonight, Seth, are there specific guys or position groups that each time Goodell walks up to the podium, we're going, okay, please don't be this guy. Please don't be this guy.
Yeah, I don't know about like specific guys as much as the cornerback position in general.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at like Quinyon Mitchell, who's probably going to go in the mid rounds or so. Cooper DeJean.
Middle of the first round.
Middle of the first round.
Yeah,
Right. Like Cooper DeJean might be one guy that I know. See, now we're at the point too where, because Cooper DeJean would be like the first white cornerback drafted in the first round since 1969 or something absurd.
Groundbreaker.
This is what's happening now, is that some people wonder whether he's actually should be better as safety. As soon as you utter that, you're labeled as somebody that's totally basing it on race and nothing else. And yet, I just encourage you to go watch Cooper DeJean and not wonder if maybe he might better be a safety.
He's not super fluid,
he doesn't
right?
have fluid hips. Yeah, like when it comes to me imagining him flipping his hips and everything, I just don't know. But that could be like the versatile type of player that maybe some of the evaluators don't feel as high about him as the mock drafters think they do. He might be a guy, because the Texans right now could use both cornerbacks and safeties, or guys that can play both. And Cooper DeJean might be that guy. But, you go to Nate Wiggins or Kool-Aid McKinstry or any of those cornerbacks that are projected like mid to late first round. I'll be really intrigued if any of them starts to slide. Because I'd be all about the Texans taking a cornerback with that first pick they have in the second round.
I think the two dreams that died with the pick or with the trade down to 42, the two dreams that Texan fans had, and I know one that I had. I think the dream of a possible Brock Bowers slipping to within range of 23 and getting him. There's a lot of talent evaluators that feel like he's the best player in this draft. He won't go first because of the position. He might not even go 10th because of the position that he plays. He's a tight end, but he is a really good football player. That dream died. And the Byron Murphy dream probably died with that trade, but it seems to be dying now because Byron Murphy is climbing up the board, according to people.
Yeah, which, again,
who knows?
Take it with a grain of salt.
Rumor mill, yeah.
The whole thing, I like Byron Murphy a lot. I think the problem with a lot of these defensive tackles is, and this is where I fall in, there are a lot of guys who really, honestly, are Byron Murphy or imitations of Byron Murphy. Johnny Newton is the next guy on the board who's not I don't want to say he's undersized, but not ideal defensive tackle size. But I don't know if they're athletic enough to be 295 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these guys are listed at 301 because they drank a bunch of Gatorade at the combine, but they're 295 or they're 290. So there's those guys that I'm not sure they're athletic enough to overcome their size issues. But then there are a couple of bigger guys in Gabe Hall and Mason Smith, who I think are big enough to overcome their athletic issues. I just wonder if maybe, I wonder if both D'Amico and Nick look at those big guys and think, well, the classic, you can't coach size. I don't like these guys in the with the first pick in the second round, but maybe later in the second round.
Yeah.
So they might just wait and bide their time. And if they're gonna if they were to take a cornerback and a defensive tackle, I think that they would probably take cornerback at number 42, and then they would take a defensive tackle
at 59, or they would move up within those little ranges for those positions right there. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. If they're still sitting at 42, is there a feasible wide receiver that would be sitting there? Let's pretend there are a couple defensive tackles on the board.
Yeah.
Is there a wide receiver that's kind of that we've been seeing in that range that if they're sitting there at 42, you'd get psyched about them taking instead of addressing the defensive side of the ball?
I think, look, there's two guys from Texas that I'm sure a lot of UT people are amped up about, and understandably so, with Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, who are both like late first round types. And then Ladd McConkey. That's
the one for me.
I know. And especially because I think that like Ladd McConkey is, not to classify him as a slot receiver or anything, but he can play all over. And just like Tank Dell can play all over, and he's not, Tank Dell doesn't take most of his snaps in the slot whatsoever. I think I'm short-sighted, Sean. I'm the child here. Like Nick Caserio has to do the adult thing and think about the next few years. I've grown ever since I got Stephon Diggs. I just don't have it in me to really want a wide receiver. I just don't. I don't want one right now. Yeah,
I know.
I feel like this is the year where you draft a wide receiver in the 3rd or 4th round, and maybe hopefully he turns into something. I also don't know how much maybe they're still banking on the upside of John Metchie. I still need to see. John Metchie is still only 2 years removed from his ACL and 1 year removed from being cleared from cancer treatment.
Right.
Let's remember, he was cleared from cancer treatment in the spring of last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've seen the best version of John Metchie yet, and I think they probably feel the same way. They want to wait and see exactly what he's like this year.
And CJ has given Metchie glowing reports on their workouts out in California. No, I'm just throwing it in there as a just a point of information in all this that he volunteered it multiple times how good Metchie looks. So
he probably loves Metchie.
Yeah,
but he also this is kind of like the whole Gary Kubiak conundrum, which is I think that sometimes when your head coach is a quarterback's guy and a quarterback's coach, it can be hard to remove yourself enough from the situation.
Yeah.
Was he a little too in love, or at least did he believe in Matt Schaub? It's important for your quarterback's coach and your offensive coordinator to believe in your quarterback, but it makes it tough to make those hard decisions sometimes. So like CJ's gonna he's gonna believe in his receivers.
Of course,
he's a good leader, and he's gonna do everything he can. But ultimately, that's why you've got a GM and a head coach to make those hard decisions.
To make the rational decisions.
Yeah, but up to CJ, they'd keep every single one of them.
Yeah, probably. Right. So I wide receiver at 42. I do like this about where the Texans sit also, with 2 picks in the 2nd round, and why I'm not totally hyped up for them to move into the 1st round is I like that 1 day in between the 1st and the 2nd round. Back in the day, I think day 1 was rounds 1, 2, and 3, and then day 2 was rounds 4 through 7, I think is how it went, or maybe it was 1 and 2, but it was a 2-day draft over a Saturday and Sunday.
Back in the day, it was 1 through 3 on the first day.
It was 1 through 3?
4 through 7, yeah.
Yeah, so
I got drafted in the 4th round. And I was sitting there, I had a bunch of teams thinking about taking me with the last pick in the 3rd round, and then I had to sit through the whole 3rd round and then sit around all morning. And then
yeah. So the 2nd round is the second round is the new 4th round, so to speak. You got a day. They made their first 32 picks, the league did, and now you got a day. And I kind of like Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans kind of having a day to survey things, work on some deals, really get a feel for how they think things are going to fall, as opposed to, I'm not saying they'd make a bad decision, but as opposed to having 10 minutes to make a decision on moving up to 29 or something like that.
Right, yeah. And you can you get a feel, too, because all the dynamics of it. Some of those teams in the 1st round, after they get who they want, or perhaps maybe after they maneuver, they have to reset exactly how they're going about it. So the possible trades and everything, or who you might call, changes a lot based on whatever happens. I was wondering, these guys, you got to force yourself to get good sleep,
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot going on to
talking
also
about the
be
executives.
Sure. Yeah, you got to try to really force yourself to get at least 6 hours of sleep so you're sharp enough to make good decisions.
You have to force yourself to do it, but at the same time, act like you have not slept in 3 weeks.
Yeah, right. It's a matter of bragging.
Tell people how hard your job is. And Nick doesn't do that, but there's others who've done that before.
That's where I would be a horrible general in the Army. I'd be operating on fumes all day long, making really rash and bad decisions.
Right.
That's why they turned me down, which I applied to be a...
You did?
Yeah.
That's why they
didn't let me into West Point. That was the first question they asked. How do you do without sleep? I'm like, oh!
You just started yelling at him. I haven't had any sleep since I had to drive to this place yesterday. Text message, move the hell on from Tunsil and Howard. We have a solid young nucleus in the middle. Start drafting their replacements. Highest paid O-line and still can't run. Where are you on that? What do you think of it?
I don't understand the solid nucleus in the center.
Well, I mean, you got Juice Scruggs, who we don't know really what he is.
We don't have a clue whether he's. I'm optimistic about him, but no, you don't.
Yeah.
And you've got a good right guard, but he's not young. And you have a complete blank space at left guard.
Yeah,
100%. Now, the tackles are fine. The tackles are absolutely fine. I don't know. I don't understand moving on from them or why you would. I've seen a lot of people. I've got one guy that emails me constantly telling me, it's weird. I can't get it through his head that I'm actually okay with Titus Howard at right tackle. Because he keeps arguing with me about sunk costs. He's like, well, it's a sunk cost. You got to move on. I'm like, no, I'm genuinely okay with Titus Howard at right tackle.
Yeah.
And
he was left guard all last year.
I know. I don't. I don't get it. I don't understand.
He has yet to take a snap at right tackle on his new contract.
Right.
Because it was an extension off of his old one. So
he's a good tackle. He's an awful guard. That's just the way it is. I think sometimes people don't want to accept that they are different positions. It's not as simple as and because offensive tackle, it's harder to find a good offensive tackle. They assume that then you must be a good guard because you're that athletic. That's like saying that a good rush defensive end is a good nose tackle.
Right.
It's a lot harder to find the good rush end, but you don't want Will Anderson playing nose tackle. I can guarantee you that. Yeah.
No. He'd try really hard at it, though. He would try super hard.
He'd be like holding people on the ground he'd be on his back holding them down like an MMA match. He'd create a lot of piles.
He would.
What he would do.
Create a lot of piles and then tell everybody in that pile how awesome they are as human beings. Speaking of Will Anderson, we'll get to Will in the next segment, reliving how important this day last year was to this team. I think when you go back and listen to the picks and you go back and listen to the phone calls, man, it really hits home just how crazy good last year wound up for the Houston Texans. Someone saying Patterson and Green as the young nucleus on the interior. Again, Kenyon Green has yet to play a good game yet in the NFL, and Jared Patterson was injured after 9 games at center.
Yeah, if Kenyon Green is your nucleus, I don't know what kind of cell structure we're working with here. I don't feel good about that nucleus. I feel
worst mitochondria ever. All right, Payne and Pendergast with you on a.
I can't remember a single thing about cell anatomy.
Mitochondria.
Good job with your mitochondria.
Yeah, that's. I've emptied the chamber. That's
organelles.
That's all I've got, man. That's all I've got. All right, let's relive it last year. Draft night 1. Where were you? I think that as a Texan fan, these were where were you moments for this team, given where they are now. The selection of CJ, the selection of Will. I've even got a bonus Tank Dell in here for you as well. That's coming up next.
Hey, Mokaram Law, boy, if you've been injured in an accident,
Live from the Twin Peaks studios, Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
So a year ago at this time, we were getting pretty amped up. Texans had picks 2 and 12.
Head up, but also terrified.
Yeah.
A lot of rumor and scuttlebutt that the Texans wouldn't take a quarterback. You know, Mel Kiper's final mock draft had the Texans taking Will Anderson at number 2.
Yep.
And then the Titans traded up to take C.J. Stroud.
In his mock draft. Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me that it wasn't
I just heard that in a vacuum. I'm like, they what?
But yeah, if the Titans had C.J. Stroud, I don't know, maybe Mike Vrabel still has his job this year.
Maybe, yeah, seriously, maybe he does. Didn't happen that way. They've got Will Levis, and Mike Vrabel is fired. So let's relive it. We didn't know, and honestly, and C.J. said this, like he didn't know he was going to go to the Texans. We didn't know. When I kind of got the inkling it was going down was when I got a push notification from one of those gambling sites saying that the odds on C.J. Stroud getting drafted with the second overall pick have gone to minus 6,000.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So
you were on it.
Well, I didn't bet it or anything that. But I looked down at my phone and I said, all these people that are worried about this right now, I didn't want to spoil it.
How long before the draft was that?
It was while the Texans were on the clock.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the draft, yeah. So they were minus 6,000 to draft C.J. Stroud.
I remember that there was a really stark shift in the odds. I didn't realize it was that close to the actual thing.
It was minus 6,000. For those who don't know, that means you got to risk $6,000 to win 100. So it's a prohibitive.
With interest rates what they are these days, that is a stupid bet. That's a really dumb bet.
Yeah, don't do it.
If you can make that money, if you can make the money just by sticking it in a money market account, don't make the bet. Okay.
Especially because you won't lose the whole money market account. You'll lose the whole $6,000 if you lose the bet. So here's what it sounded like. C.J. Stroud getting picked by the Houston Texans.
With the second pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
What's up, Nick?
What's happening, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling a lot better now.
Welcome to Texas, bud.
Yes, sir.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
No, I look forward to working with you. Nico's going to get on the phone here in a little bit. He'll visit with you here, and then we'll catch up with you after. But congratulations, you've earned this opportunity, and we can't wait to get started with you.
Thank you for the opportunity, man. I promise I won't let you down. I'm going to work my tail off.
You got it.
CJ, what's up, my man?
What's up, Coach?
Hey, man. Hey, we're all fired up, man. Excited, right? Can't wait to get to work with you, man. You ready to go? Ready to compete?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Just like we talked about, man. That's all I'm about. Yes, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know it, man. Let's go do work.
CJ.
How you doing?
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you for trusting in me.
Well, you worked hard to earn this, and so we look forward to getting you here and seeing your hard work all pay off here as a Texan.
Yes, sir. Yeah, most definitely. I promise to work hard.
I was relieved more than anything else when they drafted C.J. Stroud.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They drafted a quarterback.
They drafted a quarterback.
It wasn't even as much about C.J. Stroud himself as it was like, oh, thank God they drafted a quarterback.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, who knew what we
And
would
I
have
talked
been
myself
for?
into C.J. Stroud at that point, too. I was a Bryce Young guy.
100%. Well, you know what happened was when it looked more and more apparent that if the Texans took a quarterback, it was going to be C.J. Stroud, you start learning more about it. And some of the preconceptions I had about Stroud, just even by when I started watching more interviews with him, it was different than like kind of the image I'd had from him just at Ohio State, where a lot of times all you saw were kind of just, blank-faced press clippings from a disappointing loss, whatever, at Ohio State.
Yeah.
The more you dug into it, there was a lot to fall in love with. I will say, I hadn't thought of this until maybe this is like the 48th time I've heard that clip. Caserio did call him Bud.
Yeah.
Which,
be careful with that.
That's what I've learned. I never knew until Ryan Rocket, our old producer.
No chance Caserio
I used to, when he was working with us, I'd be like, hey, thanks, buddy. Okay, bud. All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Ryan Rocket.
Disparaging.
In some communities, it's not as much. It's not a loving term necessarily. Because both Figgy and Rocket, we've had conversations about this.
Yeah.
When they first started to get to know me, they're like, what the hell's up with this guy calling me buddy all the time?
Do you still use it?
sometimes I slip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using the B word, eh?
Yeah, just out there, right out there with it.
Right.
It's probably, you know what? It's probably going to be something that, like 30 years from now, it will look really bad. Like, here's clips of Senate nominee Seth Payne.
Right. If our show gets ripped off the air, it's going to be because you and I use an inappropriate buddy at some point.
Seth Payne trying to run for president. Turns out he was a prolific use of the B word back in the day.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
We got the audio to prove it. All right, so
well, good job, CJ, not calling Nick on it.
Yeah, that would be a
Bud. What's this Bud talk?
Trade time. Yeah. So they draft CJ, and then they move up. The Texans do from 12 to 3, and that had the draft party buzzing. That had all the people on TV buzzing. Like they will be hard pressed to replicate tonight a moment like they had last night or last year with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson getting drafted back to back.
The Arizona Cardinals have traded the third pick to the Houston Texans. With the third pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson Jr., linebacker, Alabama.
What's up?
How we doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Congratulations, Nick Caserio.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got it, brother. Happy to have you. We're so excited to have you here. Can't wait for you to get here.
Thank you.
D'Amico's right here. I'm going to put him on the phone, all right?
All
right, thanks. Yep.
Let's go, my man. Let's go.
Peace out, bye.
Oh, life, baby. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Hey, man, happy for you, man. Happy for you, brother. Happy for you. It's an exciting time, man. Can't wait to get to work with you.
I can't wait to work. Thank you for the opportunity, Coach.
No
Thank
doubt.
you.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it, sir.
Our guys really believe in you. Can't wait to get you here.
Thank you. I can't wait to get there.
All right, so Will Anderson.
That peace of mind thing is an Alabama thing.
It
of
is?
some sort. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's what he's saying. Peace of mind.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But it's some kind of Alabama thing. It's Alabama's a little bit like Texas A&M, not quite as culty, but there's a little bit of cultiness to it. I don't think their cultiness came along until they got really good at football. I don't think it's as cult-based as Aggies. Aggies are like, well, football or no football.
So Will Anderson to the Texans there. You heard him. You heard his family screaming in the background. That was really cool. And then we were done for the night after that. Like, all right, I can go drink now where the Texans pick 2 and 3. I don't have to wait around for 12 and be coherent on a video or anything like that.
Yeah.
Let's go celebrate with all these Texan fans. And it was fun. It was a really, really fun night. I think the draft party on Friday is going to be really, really fun because you're operating from a position of being a good football team. You know, rooting, in the case of fans, rooting for a good football team. It'll be almost the draft will be the integral thing there that people are watching, but it's almost like another celebration of the team here in the offseason.
Well, and they, 2 years ago, the Texans for the 2022 draft, that was when they first did the Miller Outdoor Theater, and it went pretty well. I mean, it was a good response for the people that came out and got excited about it. But what they did was that they had the previous year's draft picks come out and sign autographs, which at that point was, it was Roy Lopez, it was Davis Mills, there was a lot of guys that, people were happy to see them and everything. But it's different than I don't know if they'll have current players out there doing autographs on Friday night or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there's a better crop from which to choose.
There are,
like in terms of excitability.
And yet I'm like, I don't know if they need to this year.
Right.
I think a lot of people are going to show up. It's a Friday night, not a Thursday night.
It's a Friday night, and there will be refreshments.
There will be.
There'll be refreshments and food trucks.
Can't wait.
Probably a bunch of food. That was hard doing that pre-playoff game show that we did. It was hard because remember, there were a bunch of food trucks.
Ooh, were there ever?
And our boss offered to go get us some food, and then he disappeared for 90 minutes.
For like an hour and a
half.
half.
So I'm just smelling the food trucks, and our boss is gone with my money.
Yeah.
And no, actually, I think he took it. Hey, thanks, Parker. I think you paid for that now that I think of it. Yeah.
You still took too long.
Yeah, you still took.
All right, hey, one more
Beggars
bonus.
Can't be choosers, and yet. Yeah.
I promised a bonus one here. This is Tank Dell getting drafted, and D'Amico calling Tank Dell. The drafter right here, the announcer of the pick is Ryan Trahan, who's a YouTuber, vlogger, has a bunch of businesses. He's from Eagle Lake, Texas, so presumably a Texans fan. Here you go.
The Los Angeles Rams have traded the 69th pick to the Houston Texans. With the 69th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver out of Houston.
Tank, what's up, my man?
It's on, Coach. I promise you it's on.
No doubt, man. I know it's on, man. Get to stay in H-Town, baby.
Yes, sir. I love it. I love y'all, man. Thank y'all.
For sure, man. We're fired up for you. Happy to have you.
It's on.
He said he was going to run down to the stadium, right? He never ended up doing that. I don't know if he did that. I know if you ever. Has anybody ever asked him? Did he like Google Map it or anything to see exactly?
I don't know.
Hit the pedestrian route and yeah.
Did you? I was thrown off. I knew his real first name is Nathaniel, not Tank. But
right, except when you hear it, you never hear it that way. Yeah.
Well, throughout the whole draft process, I'm referring to him as is everybody else. It's Tank Dell. It's Tank Dell. He's Tank Dell at U of H. Tank Dell. You know his first name, but then when they draft him and they go Nathaniel Dell, and I'm like, who?
That guy. The guy who wrote Last of the Mohicans? What the hell?
Right. They drafted an author. So that was fun, man. I can't relive this stuff enough from last year in the draft, considering how the season played out. And they got a lot more work to do, obviously. They aspire to be greater than losing in the divisional round of the playoffs. But, man, things sure are feeling great around here. All right, heading into the 9 o'clock hour. We just played draft night for the Houston Texans. I would imagine in Carolina that they were pretty festive last year for draft night. There's a piece in The Athletic revisiting the drafting of Bryce Young and everything that unraveled in Charlotte this year that I think might be a good warning sign or a good warning read for the team picking first in the draft tonight.
I like this.
One
foretelling doom.
Potential big similarity between Bryce Young and Caleb Williams that Chicago should look out for. And then, quite honestly, I'm glad the Texans didn't have to deal with this past season. That is next.
Let's do the opposite of that. Instead of wasting draft picks and money, let's save money, especially on property.
contest. Sports Radio 610. The Texans play here. An Odyssey station. Sports Radio 610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
All right, as a lead into this topic here, let's replay it one more time. Here's what it sounded like last year when the Texans took C.J. Stroud with the second pick.
With the second pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select C.J. Stroud, quarterback, Ohio State.
Right, and the crowd went wild. Bryce Young had just been picked a few picks before that, gotten his little hat that he perched on top of his head and went and did his interview.
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Stroud.
Did they have to? Was he like a kid where like it was a snapback? Did they have to like put it? You know, when the kids have the snapback and there's like a huge loose flap.
I just know he had it piled on top of his head, like he almost, like it was Bryce. It was like literally, he's got all that hair up.
I can't even remember what his hair was like at the time.
Plunked it down. He had a lot of hair going on at the time. So then CJ gets picked and CJ does his thing. And we wondered at that point, like, okay, there was legit debate around the NFL, like which quarterback is better set up to have success. Remember that? Like which one, which quarterback?
It was overwhelmingly the Panthers.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly they got Frank Reich. I mean, it's going to be Frank Reich and Bryce Young for decades together, Not to mention they got Josh McCown.
Right.
Got Josh McCown. How can you go wrong on that? Yeah.
It unraveled quickly in Carolina.
They didn't even last half a season.
They didn't. Frank Reich and the whole staff gone by midway. Most of the staff gone by midway through the season, and so they did the beat writer for Carolina. His last name Joe Person is his name.
Person.
He's not a generic. He's not made out of AI.
It does sound.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, what's it called when you're a character in a video game that doesn't like have a
NPC?
What is it?
NPC. Non-playable character.
Non-playable character. He's an NPC. Joe Person.
Yeah. Right next to Billy Human. Yeah. So, but Joe Person, actual person, we think.
I thought NPC stood for not a person of color, as in like something.
Yeah,
I always feel like whenever anybody's insulted me by saying NPC, I feel like they're calling me a cracker or something. When in fact they're just saying, no, you're just dull. You're inconsequential.
You're
is all you are.
non-playable. That's a good insult. So they did it. Joe Person did a deep dive on what all went wrong in Carolina. As you can imagine, it's a very long article.
Yeah.
A lot went
wrong.
wrong.
The Athletic likes to do, too.
Couple things here. One, I didn't realize. Bill Polian was working as a consultant for the Carolina Panthers last year. So naturally, Bill Polian is standing on the table as to Bryce was still the right choice here in this article.
Because Polian and Capers both were back in the fold. Because Capers was working as an advisor to the defensive coordinator. I'm blanking on his name. He was a candidate for the Texans.
Ejiro Evero.
Yeah. So yeah, because those two hadn't always, once they split ways, it seems like, Polian's anyway.
So
okay.
So Polian.
How did Polian screw this up?
Polian says to use one season where at least one quarterback, Bryce, never had a chance because of people around him in all phases, pass protection, weapons, aside from Chuba Hubbard. He said, I don't know why he throws that in. You make a judgment, probably because he helped pick Chuba Hubbard a couple years ago, and you make a judgment based on that is utterly fallacious.
Utterly fallacious. Yeah, good job, Bill Polian. You're really doing a slam dunk job there with that team of yours.
Fallacious sounds like we're anyway.
Performing fallacious on these guys?
Yes.
Nobody wants that from you.
No. So Polian says, I think what you saw was a tremendously courageous performance by a kid who's tough as nails. You checking to see if he dumped it?
Poor Ben was really going hard on that one.
I think what you saw, this is Polian, I think what you saw was a tremendously courageous performance by a kid who's tough as nails, and he got better as a passer, both with accuracy and speed of decision-making as the season went along. How he survived 60 sacks is a tribute to both his resilience and his toughness. I actually can get with that. He got
this
sacked
is still Bill Polian?
Bill Polian talking about Bryce Young. The guy won't shut up. And nobody can play efficiently under that kind of duress. So apparently...
we had a really bad offensive line last year, like right from the get-go. CJ Stroud was playing with 4 backup offensive linemen right from the start.
Yeah, but that was against that was the Pittsburgh game, and they probably got blown out by Pitt. Oh no, that's right. They beat Pittsburgh 30-6.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and including the Ravens game was when that's when Laramie got injured. Was in the Ravens game, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So they finished that game with 4 backup offensive linemen.
Laramie didn't play really till week 5.
It was just the Ravens that the Texans were going against in that game. Yeah.
Yeah. So
what about that? Nobody could have survived that apparently.
That supporting cast in Carolina, I guess, just wasn't as good as everybody thought. This is the part that would, as I read this, if I'm a Bears fan, because one of the things about Caleb Williams, as we have broken down extensively over the last few days, his painted fingernails, crying in his mother's bosom, not going to press conferences after losses, things like that, just the general strangeness, the eccentricities that go on with Caleb Williams. He also might have a helicopter dad. Right?
Yeah.
His dad is very present. I don't think he has an agent right now. I think his dad or he has like a marketing team or something.
Right.
Like that.
And his dad sounds pretty savvy. Like he knows what he's doing, but it's always that classic.
Never know,
is he a little too close to the situation?
What if it gets bad?
Some of the stuff floated out there, not as much recently as before the season or during the season, like Caleb Williams' camp asking about ownership in the team that drafts him. It's hard to know whether, were somebody just asking questions or were they pushing for something?
Right.
So I try not to read too much into that.
When the season, this is Craig Young, Bryce Young's dad. This is a quote for this. This isn't a quote they're repurposing from before the draft. This is, he said, when the season ended, we were projected to be the number 1 pick. But then as the process was going, that's when all the experts and pundits do their evaluation on TV and ESPN. That's kind of when we were being picked apart about our size and the weight.
Our size and the weight, yeah.
But we knew once we got through that, then there's the process of your interviews. You have your pro day, you do more interviews, and then they relook at the film again. So we knew that the back end of the process was where we were going to shine.
Yeah.
This is the dad, mind you, referring to we.
Not refusing to talk about his son in the third person.
The third person.
This is the
We knew we were going to throw well.
Yeah.
And we knew we were going to interview well.
Yeah.
And we knew that we had the film.
Right.
So we were very confident that no matter where we went, no matter if it was 1, 2, or 3, we were going to get picked very high, and we were at peace with that.
Good job. I'm glad it all worked out for them.
This 3-headed monster that is
How tall is his dad? Is his dad
parents.
short too?
I don't know. Probably. I'm not sure.
How tall is the milkman?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
What if his dad is like 6'9"?
Does that bug you like it bugs me the whole week through well?
I'm trying to figure out if
through that.
I'm trying to figure out if it would be like if CJ's mom talked that way, would I be annoyed with it? No, I don't think so. I feel like it's okay.
Think she would. That's the thing.
And sometimes, there's times where I try to talk about, use we as much as possible to really stress, even if only to myself, that it's a team effort in something.
Yeah.